The hearing on the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee is hereby called to order. This is the hearing on the resolutions 1234, 1238, and 1245, all dealing with the alleged anomalies in the implementation of the AFP modernization program. Good morning, everyone. Let me just call the persons who are here, the resource persons. Thank you for coming. Representing the Commission on Audit, ASEC Susan Garcia, are you around? Ay, mga nakayelo lang. Okay. Department of National Defense, USEC Pio Batino. Morning. DND Acquisition Office, Attorney Editha Santos. Morning. Colonel Richard Ramos. Morning. Ernesto Boac, Assistant Secretary for Controllership. Are you around, sir? Good morning. DND Inspection Team, Major Rene Rodolfo. Morning. Captain Antonio Perez. Good morning. DND Special Bids and Awards Committee, USEC Fernando Manalo. Morning, sir. DND Technical Inspection and Acceptance Committee, Colonel Dino C. Dino. Good morning, sir. Brigadier General Francisco Carada. Good morning, sir. Colonel Rene Onasan, Philippine Air Force. Good morning, sir. Major Reggie Pakatang, PAF. Morning. DND Technical Working Group, Brigadier General Conrado Para. Morning. Colonel Moises Micor, Oliver Kasungkad, Florante Baterina, and Kathleen Gudayon. Good morning. Philippine Air Force, Lieutenant General Jeffrey Delgado. Morning. Colonel Glenn Cruz. Morning. Florante Amano, Colonel Florante Amano. Good morning. Major Ronald Lakbain. Good morning. Of course, Ms. Rodora Alvarez. Good morning. Mr. Robert A. Rice. Good morning. And Mike O'Reilly, represented by Matthew Rice. Good morning. ASEC Patrick Velez. Are you around? Yes, good morning. Okay. We begin this Blue Ribbon hearing amidst very, very serious allegations. There have been allegations. May mga bintang na merong anomalya na nangyari sa pagbili nitong mga Armed Forces of the Philippines pagbili ng helicopters para sa modernization ng ating armed forces. Merong bintang, napakabigat na bintang, na meron daw suhol or bribe of 180 million. And certain percentages go to the officers, some to the higher up, and some to private persons. All in all, it's around 180 million pesos in alleged bribery money. Secondly, there are allegations of failure to comply with the rules on procurement or bidding rules. We shall see in the following hearings whether these allegations have basis or not. Right now, they remain allegations, and right now, we are in the course of hearing these allegations and their basis by Ms. Rodora Alvarez, who I understand now is already under the, yes, I see them here, under the Witness Protection Program. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
Salamat po sa inyo.
Yes, okay. So, For the past few hearings, we have had Ms. Alvarez make her presentation, and now you'll make your final presentation. Am I correct?
Sana po matapos. I am intending to present all the annexes.
Okay. Okay. Mabigat itong mga bintang na ito, especially in the light of the situation now in our country. We have several superpowers circling our shores, and it's very obvious that we do need a modernized Navy, a modernized Air Force. And it would be a tragedy if these allegations are found to be true. If found to be true, then the persons involved have made a great disservice to this country, and I would say it would be tantamount to a betrayal of the Filipino people. But again, let me emphasize that these, at this point in time, remain allegations. And so here we are now. We want to know, number one, ano ba nangyari? What happened? Number two, what is the basis for saying this happened? Anong basihan? Number three, sino ang gumawa? Who did these actions? Number four, anong dapat natin gawin mga batas para hindi na ulit mangyari yung nangyari? What laws do we enact so that these things will not happen again? For example, in the year of 2013, the data submitted by the DND shows that out of 35, I'm rounding off figures. In 2013, out of 35,000 contracts, only 650 contracts have undergone competitive bidding. Ang ibig po sabihin yan, yung iba, naging negotiated. Pero you have 35,000 contracts and only 650 have undergone negotiated bidding. Have undergone public bidding. The rest, presumably, have undergone negotiated procurement. Again, in 2014, the figures show 32,000 contracts. 32,000 contracts, 420 lang ang dumaan sa competitive bidding. Gentlemen from the Department of National Defense, you have to admit this is really alarming figures. Biro mo, 32,000 contracts, pero 420 contracts lang ang dumaan sa competitive bidding. Ang ibig sabihin niyan, yung iba, may failure of first bid, failure of second bid, and maybe the third bid, and then they went into negotiated procurement. How come negotiated procurement seems to be the mode, the general rule, instead of the exception? This is something we should look at. And maybe this is something you should answer in the future. Now, this data was culled from your submissions, gentlemen from the Department of National Defense. We got it from your submissions. But again, really, can you imagine? In 2013, 35,000 contracts, 650 lang ang dumaan sa competitive bidding or na-award because of competitive bidding. The rest went through negotiated procurement. In 2014, 32,000 contracts, 420 lang. We did a little math. Nahulog sa 1 to 2%. Between 1 to 2% of all your contracts are awarded because of competitive bidding. The rest, because of failure of competitive bidding, you go into negotiated procurement. Mm, it's not very, very comfortable. These are not, you have to admit, these are not very comfortable statistics. And something should be done. Are you ready, Ms. Alvarez?
Paki-check na lang po doon sa control room.
Okay. Maybe the technicians tell me that the presentation of Mr. Rice is the one on board right now. Am I correct? Okay. So we'll give how long will the presentation take, Mr. Rice? Approx.
I'm not certain.
Approximately.
Maybe an hour?
Pardon?
Possibly an hour?
1 hour? Okay. Can you be as brief as possible?
Yes.
Okay then. Go ahead, Mr. Rice. You have the floor.
We're waiting for a PowerPoint to come up. All right. Okay, so this presentation is to kind of give you a background of our company, as well as how we got to meet Ms. Alvarez and also Mr. Nguyen, and kind of just give you a look inside on how this deal happened. So first of all, we opened our company up in 2003, and we've dealt with over 200 UH-1Hs, 42 SH-3 helicopters, 29 UH-1Ds, 60 T-53 series engines. So we have a lot of experience in helicopters and aviation, and our facility sits on 5.5 acres. We have one main office of 5,000 square foot. It has 17 offices within one building. We have a main hangar that's 5,250 square feet, in addition to the 3 hangars each that are 10,000 square feet. So we're not a small repair shop. We have a very large facility. The joint venture received a notice of award of 1.2 billion peso contract in December of 2013 for the supply of 21 refurbished UH-1 helicopters. These helicopters are conceived with the most highly modified and advanced version of the UH-1 that has ever existed. These are also configured with crash-worthy, self-sealing main fuel cells. Each helicopter was fully refurbished and underwent comprehensive ground and flight testing at the joint venture's facility in California prior to being disassembled for containerized shipping to the Philippines. Here's a couple photos of all the aircraft being refurbished at our facility. As you'll see, okay. It's okay, next slide, please. Just to give you a little, I guess, history of the UH-1D, they were produced under license in Germany between 1967 and 1972. What we've done here is made you a table of the 21 aircraft we have delivered to the Philippines. And what I've done is given you an average age of all the aircraft put together, which comes out to be 46 years old. But please note, between 1990 and 2000, every single aircraft underwent the Structural Life Extension Program, which is very extensive maintenance and inspection, and it enhances the helicopter indefinitely. In comparison, what I've done here is shown you a table of aircraft that are currently in operation for the United States military. As you know, the United States military has the most powerful military in the world, and as you can see, we still operate some of these aircraft that are 61 years old. You got the C-130. The Philippines Air Force has a couple of those. You have the P-3 Orion, 54 years old. They were produced. Helicopters like the Black Hawk, which the presidential wing operates here, 41 years. So it's not about age, it's about maintenance, and it's about enhancing as the helicopter gets older, and they'll continue to fly for you if you maintain them correctly. Currently, all 21 aircraft are here at Clark, and the picture here is seven aircraft of the remaining 14 waiting for the Philippine Air Force to accept. We'd like to start out by letting you know how we met Tak Nguyen. In 2009, he was recommended to us in order to help Rossi obtain export licenses and controlled items such as helicopters. And he held himself out to be an attorney with a high-level government access in the executive branch. And like I said, he dealt with import and export of helicopters. As many as 20 companies, including ourselves, believed in his false representations. We believe that he can facilitate business transactions involving controlled items. And Mr. Nguyen created many false documents that were unaware to Rossi. Tak Nguyen falsely claimed that he represented the State Department as he negotiated the sale of helicopters to the Philippines on behalf of Rice Aircraft. On May 14th, 2015, he was sentenced to 57 months in federal prison for these charges of wire fraud and illegal brokering activities. Once we found out that Mr. Nguyen was doing this stuff behind our back, we turned him into the State Department, and we terminated his services immediately. And before doing so, he introduced us to Miss Alvarez, and we were unaware of her existence until October of 2013. And as we know now, she's a BRR employee. She's the majority shareholder of Rossi Supply and Maintenance Philippines, which is a company she opened up in order for us to send funds for operating expenses in regards to the delivery of the aircraft. She's a former representative of ours. She did hold a special power of attorney. And as we know, according to her affidavit, in 2012, she's been working with Tak Nguyen on this project, so they're very close associates. Here's a signed power of attorney that is signed by Robert Rice, Mike O'Reilly, and Miss Alvarez on November 21st, 2013. This gave her the power to basically facilitate any documents that was needed by D&D or the Air Force. It included a performance bond and basically any in-country operations that she needed authority to use. So as I said before, they've been working together since 2012. It was actually Miss Alvarez who let us know that Mr. Nguyen was submitting documents behind our back without our knowledge that were false. And so once we discovered this, we terminated Mr. Nguyen, and Miss Alvarez actually offered Rossi her services to prepare a bid for us in order to win the contract. After a successful bid, Ms. Alvarez offered her assistance in everything relating to the delivery, such as logistics, being the liaison between us and the PAF, paying for fuel for the aircraft, purchasing of supplies, and we even put her in charge of payroll for the local employees that we hired here. So as per procurement law, once we signed the contract, we had to purchase a performance bond for the contract, in which Rossi sent Ms. Alvarez $121,460, in which she signed on our behalf and purchased a performance bond. In September, when our contract expired, the performance bond expired as well, which was after 180 days. So we were informed by Ms. Alvarez that we needed to purchase an extension of the performance bond. So Rossi sent Ms. Alvarez $110,500 to purchase this performance bond. Next slide, please. As I said before, she was the liaison between Rossi and the TAC for delivery of the aircraft. If PAF had a question, they would go through her, she would relay it to us, and we would provide them the proper documents that they were asking for. This is Ms. Alvarez flying in what she claims to be a defective and unsafe UH-1D helicopter. To your left is a video, which we can submit to you separately if you'd like. Go ahead and click it. No, go back. Click the play button on the bottom left. There it is. Next slide. So in October of 2014, Ms. Alvarez stated that she needed to come to our facility and talk to us about important matters, in which she did. Upon our arrival, she informed my dad, Bob Rice, of her intention to receive 15% of the contract as part of her commission. And as you can see to the right is her contract agency, in which she sent us an email saying, please review if everything is in order and sign and send back to me. As I've highlighted, it says 15%, which is the commission after awarding of the contract. Once we denied her this request, 15% was too much. She began to back off and then insisted that she wanted 3% for commission. As you can see, here's a billing notice she sent us in an email saying, in view of this, I hereby collect my 3% part of the commission for the awarding of the contract as mentioned. Also in her email, she began to accuse Rossi, saying that we owed her money and that she used $278,674 of her own money and that we needed to reimburse her for that, and we denied that request. Once we denied her request for commissions and reimbursements, she began to send us emails basically threatening us and trying to force us to pay her. As you can see, here's some of the emails where she asked, where's my money? Where is it? Pay, pay, pay. Pay your obligations. Pay my commission to start with. Don't challenge my abilities. You've been benefiting on those. I have nothing to lose. All innuendos for payment. Once we denied her that payment, she revoked our performance bond. She was in charge of purchasing that performance bond. She found that bond company. All Rossi did was send her the money for it. And on January 24th, Ms. Alvarez sent us an email and said, I've totally withdrawn all my guarantee in favor of your company. Basically, you may start looking for a performance bond company from your own country, and your performance bond is canceled, and don't insist on having it back, because we would not pay her commissions or reimbursements. And after the performance bond was revoked, we never received that money back. That money was lost. Here's another email from Ms. Alvarez. It says, you've been talking a lot. Can you zoom in, please? There it is. You've been talking a lot and been damaging my reputation. Please be informed that effective today, I'm canceling your performance bond. I will no longer give guarantee to the insurance company due to the lack of documentary requirements. Please be informed as well that I intend to deduct against my commission all the money you sent to Rossi's account, and I will get back everything I bought and charge the crew and pilots for return of money paid to them. This is served as notice. In addition, she created a work stoppage for us at Clark. She threatened our local Philippine crew that she was going to charge them with tax evasion if they returned back to work. So none of them would work, and all of this because Ms. Alvarez wanted her money, in which we would not send her. Go ahead and zoom in, please. So here are some of the emails she sent us. Go ahead and zoom in, please. There's 4 zoom-ins. We tried desperately to get the workers back, and she kept denying us. And we said, how do we get our guys back to building helicopters again? And she says, payment of the negative balance. Basically would hold back the workers, and we couldn't assemble helicopters, and this is what caused a delay in our delivery. Next slide, please. So between December 2013 and October of 2014, we sent Ms. Alvarez $410,945. to cover all the operation expenses and purchases of supplies related to the delivery of the UH-1s. When Rossi requested Ms. Alvarez to account for the funds that we sent her, we asked her to provide invoices and receipts for the money sent, and she couldn't provide them. These pictures are actually from her Facebook during this time when we asked her where the money's going, and she couldn't provide answers for them. So right here and then we kind of became skeptical of her honesty. She's handing out money.
Yeah, this is Christmas time, and she's handing out money. On the top right, it's a basket full of wrapped pesos, all $100 denominations. The one below her is all of her family that she's handing it out to during Christmas time, and also to the left. And we have many more pictures to this, all on her Facebook, and that's really brought us to wonder, where's our money going? All of this money is going out, and as well, when we showed up, she had 2 brand new vehicles, a brand new van and a brand new car.
In addition to the many vacations she was taking as well. So when she couldn't account for the money, we got with our accountants in the U.S., and we also hired a local Philippine accountancy firm here to conduct an audit report of all the money sent versus the receipts and invoices she was providing. At the end of that audit report, both ourselves and the Philippine accountancy firm came up with a total of $210,681.89 missing. She could not account for it. Next slide, please. This is the local Philippine crew that we hired here. There's, I think, a total of 7, and we had 2 American technicians work side by side and manage this group. They came highly recommended to us by another associate within the aviation industry who used them for a contract in Thailand. So they were recommended to us, and we got with them to and put them to work here in the Philippines. So. And just assembly. Like I said, the helicopters were not refurbished here. They were assembled here. So upon this agreement of the local Filipino crew, we made an agreement with the mechanics that we would pay them $80 per day, plus provide them food and lodging. After the audit report, it came out that Ms. Alvarez was only paying them an average of $34 per day over a 7-month period. We also made an agreement with the Filipino pilots to make $250 per day, and it came out that Ms. Alvarez was only paying them $100 per day. We also got reports from our own employees that she was providing them very little food with the money that we sent to take care of them of their food and lodging. Over a 7-month period, Ms. Alvarez withheld $182,560 from the local Filipino crew. After all of these events were occurring, we submitted a letter to D&D addressed to USEC Manalo to let them know all of these actions that Dory was doing, and that it was hindering our delivery, and that we wanted to keep them informed of what was going on in the project. And so here you see a 3-page letter submitted to him, and we'd be happy to provide everybody here a copy. So in summary, we terminated Ms. Alvarez's special power of attorney that we gave her because she couldn't account for $210,000 that Rossi transferred to her account, not to mention the $110,000 we gave her for a performance bond that never came back to us. She created work stoppages for us, and it created significant delays in delivery of the helicopters. Even the money that we sent to pay those vendors, after we terminated her services, we came here and found out we still had outstanding bills to pay with the same vendors that should have been taken care of in the first place. She was embezzling the mechanics, the pilots, and technicians' payroll, and her email threats and extortion. All of these are reasons for termination of her power of attorney, and now you can see her motive on why we're here. Next presentation.
That's your presentation?
We have another one.
I have another one.
Yes.
Before you proceed, could you submit to us the soft copy of your presentation?
Absolutely.
Plus the printouts of the emails that you you cited here.
Sure. Absolutely.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Make sure you go read this one.
Okay, this is a line-by-line analysis of Ms. Alvarez's affidavit.
Just make that general statement. We're only going to address stuff that that's something after the figure.
This is going line by line, isn't it?
So it's line by line, and then PowerPoint
Okay.
address some of the stuff too.
Okay, line 7.2, Annex C and D. She stated that we submitted fraudulent export licenses, when in fact these licenses were done by Tak Nguyen back when her and Tak Nguyen were working in a partnership together. And when we found out what was going on with Mr. Nguyen, and we saw that he had so many fraudulent documents, we actually went to the State Department ourselves, and we surrendered the documents for fear that that there was fraudulent documents within the DSP 83 in order to get it. So we surrendered the export license, and we applied for new export licenses so that we could ensure that we had legitimate export licenses for bringing the aircraft here. Next slide. These are the approved export licenses that were submitted by Tak Nguyen, and just so everyone knows, this was not a prerequisite for getting the contract. These were something that was shown, but nowhere in the TOR did it say you had to have approved export license to bid on this. These are the approved versions. Next slide, please. And one's for a Huey, one's for the upgraded Huey.
What's the difference between the two?
The upgraded Huey, and it's for 8.
You have
Super.
you have two export licenses
Right.
side by side. Is there a difference between the two?
Yeah, we had 13 standard UH-1Ds, and then we had 8 upgraded. So the upgraded ones required a different license because they had different technology on them, fast fin strakes and the engine out of a Cobra. Here's the proof that we surrendered those licenses to the State Department, and they sent us back acknowledgement revoking those licenses. Next slide, please. We went through an 11-month investigation with the State Department once we gave them a voluntary disclosure on the actions of Mr. Nguyen. This is the closeout statement from the State Department, and it says at this time we are closing the case without taking further action imposing civil penalty. This closure is predicated on Rice Aircraft's disclosure under the ITAR 172 and its full cooperation with our inquiry. Next slide, please. All right. Do we have a picture of that letter?
No, this is in her.
Okay. Yeah, on line 19, she presented Mr. Nguyen's letter to USEC Manalo saying that the aircraft from Rossi were transferred to Vector. We've never seen that letter. That is absolutely a forgery. He's never been part of our corporate structure. He's never been an employee of Rossi. He was only an independent broker. So that letter is complete fraudulent, and you can see it's signed by Tak Nguyen, where if this had been something of this importance, like transferring all of these helicopters' ownership, it would have most certainly been signed by me. Next slide, please. Line 19.3, Ms. Alvarez's assigned internium facts. There you go. Is it coming down? No, there's nothing there. Line 19.3, Ms. Alvarez assigned internium facts. Next slide, please.
So on November 21st, 2013, Ms. Alvarez was given a special power of attorney in which she refused 2 months prior to that. So we thought we'd make note that she said it was wrong to receive something like that in September, yet 2 months later she received it anyways. So
Line 38, bills of sale. She's made a statement that they were trying to cover the fact that we only had 20 bills of sale, when in fact we had 29 bills of sale. There was 20 bills of sale done under an FA form, which is a standard for the United States, and we had a warranty bill of sale, as well as a letter of agency from Peter Whelan, who we worked with to get the first batch of 20 helicopters from Germany. We worked together side by side with him, but because we paid the money, he assigned all of those helicopters over to us just for our own protection. These two documents here cover the first 20 helicopters. Next slide, please. Oh, we have another warranty bill of sale covering the next 9. We bought the aircraft in 2 separate sales, 20 helicopters in one sale, 9 helicopters in the other, and they were all in our possession, and we were the owners of those helicopters sitting at our facility in California when we bid on this contract. So, you know, the fact that she states that we didn't own them is just complete garbage. Line 42.2, defamation and intentional interference with a contract. Tak Nguyen, when Ms. Alvarez let us know that Tak Nguyen was who he was, Tak Nguyen got very angry because effectively Ms. Alvarez just took Tak Nguyen's job. She says, he's this, he's that, you need to get rid of him, let me take his job. So he was very angry, and he went back to Peter Whelan and Pat Soares, who was my original partner on buying them, and he cooperated with them to write letters to D&D to challenge the ownership, to spite me, to try to stop it from happening. We have filed a case against him, and we are going to have it heard by the district court. Hopefully this month we'll have a venue. But you can see that in every step of the way, when we found anomalies, we've dealt with them. We've dealt with Dory when it was necessary, we've dealt with Tak when it was necessary, and we dealt with Whelan when it was necessary. This is excerpts from our complaint, and it basically, from what Dory was saying, was that they should have challenged ownership, and this is part of the complaint that we filed in our court system to make them stand accountable for their actions in what they did with D&D. But we absolutely proved ownership through the bid process, and then again redid it after these things surfaced to the D&D through Mr. Nguyen and the 2 folks from Australia. Now, this is going to show you a little idea of what they had in mind here. As soon as things started going south with Mr. Nguyen, you can see what the highlighted actions, and you're going to see this is very familiar to what you're seeing right now. He says, we're going to take action beginning with a notification of the Philippine government, which they did, and then with a message for the Philstar magazine about the scandal, but in this case, we got to use the Manila Times. Next slide, please. Line 43.3, delay in opening of a letter of credit. Ms. Alvarez has claimed that we delayed since January to open a letter of credit, which is complete garbage, and we have, next slide, please. As you can see, this is a letter that we received for the very first time, giving us wire instructions of where to send the money to open the letter of credit. Dated when? February 21st, 2014. Not the January that she has in her sworn affidavit, that it was January, and you can see the first letter is February 21st. If you look down, can you back up please? Below the chart, you'll see that there was the wiring instructions there, and our bank as well as Land Bank had a great difficulty in deciphering how this money is to be sent. And if you read that, it's very, very hard even for our bank, and they worked with Land Bank trying to send the money, and it took us on a 3rd attempt we finally were able to get the money received. But it would suggest in there that that the Standard Chartered Bank was supposed to be an intermediary bank, and the money was supposed to end up in the Philippines at the Land Bank. So on our first attempt, we sent the money, and it went out in Philippine peso, and it got returned by Land Bank. We have all proof from our bank documents. We submitted it to Edith Santos at Dow, and showing that the money went out of our account, and it was 3 weeks later that we were notified that the money was returned. So we got with Land Bank, and they said, oh, the problem is that the money needs to come into U.S. currency. So we resent the money out in U.S. currency. She said it's a U.S. dollar account. So we sent it out, and lo and behold, 2 weeks later, the money's returned. So then we got our bankers together with Land Bank and found out that the money's not going to Land Bank at all. The money goes to Standard Chartered, and it's a U.S. dollar account. They're not an intermediary bank. Land Bank actually has the money at Standard Chartered, and a Land Bank has an account in the U.S. Standard Chartered. The money was to go no further. But if you read that, what it says there, no one could decipher it. It wasn't an attempt to delay. We made every attempt. The money left our account. We never saw the money again. We weren't able to use the money. There was no delay tactics. There's no motive for us. We sent the money. Unfortunately, we couldn't get it to where it needed to go. Next slide, please. Here's a letter that we sent to Ida Santos and explaining what's happened with the money, where, when, and we attached to this, we sent all of our bank records and showing that the money, when it left, when it came back, and each and every time it happened. Next slide, please. Line 45.2, contract amendment. For all intents and purposes, the amendment to the contract proved to be disadvantageous to the government because the requirements of the powertrain must be at least new surplus condition was reduced to 50% remaining time. This was in fact an error in the TOR. In the very first line of the TOR, it tells you every TCI items, TCI means time change item, and it's highlighted to the left, must have 50%. Somehow, over in number 7, it addressed TCI items and then bumped it up to brand new. These are refurbished helicopters. It would be an impossibility to do that. And when we pointed it out to them, it was a quick resolution that that's not what the intention was. 50% life was the intention of the contract. On the standard, 50% time on all the components, 50% time remaining on the engines. On the upgraded, we gave brand new zero overhaul engines and 50% TCI items. Line 47, employees of Rossi. Mr. Rice had no facility but a small repair shop, and nobody was working in his office except him and his family and a certain Mr. Will Peterson. I think we showed you with the slide. We have 5.5 acres. Miss Alvarez, when she came to the U.S., was so jet lagged that we couldn't get her to our facility before 4 o'clock in the afternoon any day that she was there, which I might add, she was only there for a couple days without leaving her hotel, coming late in the afternoon after our employees have gone home for the day. And then after about 2 or 3 days, she needed a ride back to San Francisco because she was loaded with money and she was going to Disneyland. And that's where she spent her weekend. But to make a claim that we're working out of our backyard, I don't know anybody who's got a backyard that big. Miss Alvarez says, just told you that the people that were working were only a guy named Will Peterson and my family. This is her standing in the hangar, and the guy to the right is not Will Peterson and not my family. That's John Raposa. He's one of 12 employees that were working on every day that she was there. Next slide, please. This is more pictures within our facility. The guy in the middle is, his name is Mana. And this is off Dory's Facebook. She's making in a sworn affidavit claims that we have no employees and we're working out of a small shop in our backyard, and she's taking these photos. In my eyes, that's perjury. Employee time cards. Upon reviewing employee time cards for the work week ending October 22nd through October 30th, length of Mrs. Alvarez's visit, a total of 12 employees were clocked in and on site. Next slide, please. We'll be happy to give you those time cards if you so want to review them. There was 12 employees at site, not to mention another 11 employees in the Philippines working. Line 49 and 49.1.
On June 22nd, 2014, 4 units of UH-1D arrived at 410th Hangar, Clark Air Base, under bill of lading number ending in 161 and 166. As shown on the packing list attached to the bills of lading, the said 4 units of UH-1D helicopters arrived without rotor blades, is what Ms. Alvarez stated. Here's bill of lading ending in 161, and here's the packing list submitted in order to obtain that bill of lading. As you can see in the bill of lading, the container number starting with FCIU ending in 945 is listed on the bill of lading, and as you can see on the packing list, there are 4 main rotor blades. So her claim is completely false, and here's proof.
It's also by serial number, so you could actually go to those aircraft today and verify those serial numbers are on those aircraft that they were shipped with.
Next slide. Same here.
Excuse me. These helicopters are here now.
There's 21 helicopters have been here since.
You said this can
February.
be checked. The serial numbers can
Absolutely.
be checked.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Anyone from the DND? Are these helicopters presently here?
Your Honor, with your permission, may I ask the TIAC
Go
to
ahead,
make
Sure. Sure.
the necessary reply? Thank you, Your Honor.
Identify yourself, please.
Sir, I'm Colonel Dino, the chairman of the Technical Inspection and Acceptance Committee. Sir, regarding the 4 UH-1D that arrived on June 22, sir, they are all here. And they are...
They have the rotor blades.
Yes, sir, they have the rotor blades already, sir.
Okay, so this is verifiable then.
Yes, sir, because they're all flying already, sir.
Thank you. Okay, please proceed.
In the next bill of lading that she refers to, ending in 166, same case, you have container number CBHU ending in 908. As you can see, it's on the bill of lading, and there's the packing list submitted, and there's 4 rotor blades. So where she gets helicopters delivered without rotor blades is completely false. You want this one?
Line 71. Upon inspection, it was discovered that in the helicopters delivered by Rossi, on the lines, links, valves leading to the fuel cells are the only thing that are self-sealing. Miss Alvarez's total helicopter experience in all of her life is the time that she's worked for Rossi. So Miss Alvarez has made a grave error here. This is a picture of the top of the fuel cell. It says UH-1D self-seal in the first box to the left. And so she's made the assumption that the word links next to it meant only the links are self-sealing. I'm here to tell you that links, and anybody can Google it if they like, in German means left hand. This is a picture of the left-hand self-sealing fuel cell. So everything else that she did related to the fuel cell with links and lines is all a bunch of garbage, because links means left. And next slide, please. And just to show you that that is so, we open up the right side to show you that the UH-1D self-sealing fuel cell that she claims they do not have, that one doesn't have links that are self-sealing. That one has Reichs that are self-sealing. In German, that means right. So, yeah, Ms. Alvarez has made a lot of assumptions and a lot of allegations based on her lack of knowledge of helicopters. Next slide, please. Line 68D, intake screens. In one of her lines, she says that the aircraft don't have any intake screens at all. In another one, she says they have inadequate screens. So the intake screens is not suitable for Philippine conditions. And this is the opinion of someone who's known helicopters for less than a year in their life on a part-time basis, because as we know, she's working for the BIR and trying to be a helicopter expert at the same time. This is a picture of the intake screen that goes over top of the engine and the intake to prevent anything from coming through it. If it goes through, it has to be smaller than the screen size that you see there. So for her to say that it's not suitable, I would tell you that maybe we shouldn't tell the Germans that, because they've been operating them for 50 years with this screen and have had no issues with it. Next slide, please. Line 75, once a helicopter is with Slep feature, its fuel cell panel becomes smaller, thereby resulting in a much slimmer fuel cell. I have no idea. She must have dreamt this one up. This is just absolutely a fabricated statement. And here's the proof of it. If you look at the UH-1H fuel cell, back up please. This is directly out of the flight manual. If you look in the yellow shaded area, the capacity of all the fuel cells combined in the UH-1H is 208 gallons. Okay, now in the much smaller fuel cells that she claims we have, we can hold 212 gallons. or sorry, 220 gallons, 12 gallons more in a smaller space. Maybe somebody else can explain to me how that could possibly be, but it's just not so. So in order to try to explain this to people that don't know helicopters in layman's terms, we went a step further. Next slide, please. UH-1H Slep panel on the right-hand side. UH-1D on the left-hand side. You can see they're of the exact dimensions of width, height, and everything. So nothing has changed, and that's the only part of the aircraft over top of the fuel cells that has a Slep panel in it, and it's the floor panel itself. Next slide, please. She's also made claims that the aircraft's interchangeability of parts, that the UH-1D, because she's not a helicopter enthusiast, she's made a claim or an assumption that the UH-1D, because the letter D becomes before H in the alphabet, somehow has to be older and obsolete. It absolutely isn't the case. So we did a comparison of all of the components, second column in UH-1D, third column UH-1H. Did a comparison all the way down through of part number for part number, and everything within the drivetrain of that helicopter is interchangeable. Nothing changes. But you do get some bonuses here. We provided a helicopter with an upgraded main rotor blade that by part number, even within the UH-1H, is listed in the manual. You can install that blade on your UH-1Hs. You can put them on a UH-1D. They're completely compatible. We gave you those at no charge. We gave you the performance enhancing. We gave you an extra 8,000 hours of life through a composite main rotor blade, which you can see all the way to the right top. We also gave you the elevators of a commercial helicopter, which have no retirement life. And on the UH-1H, that elevator is good for 3,600 hours because it's a lighter elevator. You'll never replace one unless you damage one. We've given you engine vibration monitoring, which is something that the UH-1H has never had, and it provides a safety feature to be able to see what your engine's doing in flight, and it would let you know of an impending failure.
Excuse me, what is TBO?
Time before overhaul.
Time before overhaul.
Yes.
So, for example, the first one says 10,000, so 10,000 hours before overhaul.
There's two columns there. See one that says TBO? Those are on items that require overhaul, that you overhaul them, return to service. To the right is a retirement column. And those items, once they reach that life, they get scrapped.
Yes, that was the retirement. And if the TBO is blank?
If the TBO is blank, it means it has a retirement life, not a TBO life.
And what makes the parts interchangeable is that they have the same number?
They have the exact same part number.
Okay, please proceed.
Next slide, please. Line 76, instruments. The instruments and nomenclatures for the spare parts of the UH-1D are all written in German language, this making it difficult for the PAF to canvass, much less purchase the needed parts to make and keep the helicopters flying. Next slide, please. So we went into the flight manuals of both helicopters again, and we compared all of the instruments in the instrument panel. The two columns to the right, you'll see all of the X's in the first column, and that will tell you that all of those instruments are the same and interchangeable and have the same markings, same U.S. markings that an H model does. And the column to the right are the only four instruments in the cockpit that are different as far as from a pilot's perspective. And two of those are added features. Those are something that you didn't have in the H model anyway. They were a radar altimeter, you had engine vibration monitoring, and we actually gave you a torque gauge that is a very modern torque gauge that gives you 3 warning lights rather than just a standard PSI gauge that you had to know what the cow factor is on. This gauge will give you a light saying you're getting close, be careful. Another one that says you've reached your limit, and a third light that says you've over-torqued the helicopter. And these are very state-of-the-art gauges, and they're modern gauges. They're fully supportable. I think that anyone within the PAF that has to do with logistics knows that some of the older instruments in the UH-1H are getting harder and harder to support. Now, the altimeters, I think those are the only other two instruments that read differently, and they read out in the metric system, of which I think mostly you're familiar with. But if you're not familiar with it, all of the gauges have range markings with a green, a yellow, and a red to let you know where your limits are. So it doesn't matter if it's reading out in kph, pounds, inches, centimeters. It really just doesn't matter because you're flying a range marking, not having to know the math to figure out why it's set. Next slide, please. Line 93. Mr. Rice has been using different schemes to win me back and cooperate until he resorted to using dirty tactics such as death threats, bad mounting. I don't know what a bad mount is, but I don't. Bad mouthing. But I'm a helicopter guy. I'm a family man. I have absolutely no criminal record. I've never had so much as a misdemeanor or anything in my life. I know helicopters. For her to say that I'm threatening her is just absolute garbage. I don't threaten people. I build helicopters. That's what I do. Rossi has never sent Ms. Alvarez any death threats, and if she says I have, I would love to see them, and I would love to be able to challenge them, and I'd like to know how this has happened. When every time I've come to the Philippines, Ms. Alvarez is on the shooting team for BIR. She has a gun sitting on the floor every time she's ever picked me up, and she's worried about me? Seriously? We welcome Ms. Alvarez to provide proof of any of these death threats. Rossi did not send an Australian acquaintance and a Philippine law firm to bribe Ms. Alvarez, but rather to try to reach an agreement with her on her commissions that was equitable for both parties. Ms. Alvarez did a wonderful job helping us prepare our documents to win this bid. She'd been through this process with her accomplice, Tak Nguyen, on 3 tries beforehand, so she knew exactly how to do it, and she did her outstanding job. We felt it deserved compensation. But the only thing we asked for Ms. Alvarez, she actually asked us to send this guy to her with our law firm, and we have pictures of them sitting there trying to come to an agreement. And the only requirement we had for Ms. Alvarez was, we'll give you your 3%, but put our performance bond back in place so we can continue on with the contract. She refused to do it, I think because she probably had spent the money. But she refused to do it, and that's why we're here today, is because she refused to do her part of the deal to enact an agreement between us. We didn't have an issue with paying her 3%. We had no issue with whatsoever. Next slide, please.
That's it. UH1D presentation?
Was it?
UH1D presentation?
Now, Ms. Alvarez has said that the UH1D is unsafe, it's antiquated, it's obsolete. So we had a presentation here that we'd like to show you just what the difference between these two helicopters are. This is a UH-1D sitting in our facility that's been refurbished there, not here by the Philippine crew, which Ms. Alvarez says has all been done here. But that is an aircraft sitting in our facility, and here's the real differences that sets this aircraft so far apart from the UH-1H. The main rotor blades are composite. Not only do you get a 10,000-hour life benefit versus a 2,400-hour life benefit of the metal blade, but you get a huge performance upgrade. The airfoil is asymmetrical, which means the blade is flat on the bottom and it's humped on the top, just like a wing of an airplane. The UH-1H's blade was a metal blade produced early 60s, and for the ease of production of a metal blade, they made it what they call symmetrical. It's same top, same bottom, very easy to produce, but it's inefficient. With a composite blade, you gain 600 pounds more lift once you reach over 2,000 pounds of altitude. So when we're talking about aircraft going into search and rescue to places like Baguio, 600 pounds is a big deal. So to have that efficiency over 2,000 feet where you need this aircraft the most, which is search and rescue, going to mountaintops, everything over 2,000 feet, and density altitude, which you have a problem with because of the heat and the humidity here in the Philippines, the aircraft hands down will outperform the H model every day of the week. And it will also outperform the Huey 2 over 2,000 feet. With that composite blade, you're also going to get something more conducive to the environment you operate in, which is it's a salty environment. You're obviously live on an island, and it's very humid, so the humid air retains the salt. It means you have a lot of corrosion problems. This is composite, which means it's fiberglass. We don't have those issues with this blade. The metal blades, I think that you will find that a majority of the blades in your inventory currently, if they haven't been either have a bullet through them or timed out, they've probably been rejected for corrosion, because corrosion is a big problem on a blade that's made out of aluminum. The top picture is a composite blade. You notice that from the base of the blade, just all the way to the left to the tip, it's shaped where it's fat at the base and thin at the tip. And what that does, it distributes the load equally throughout the blade. See and next slide, please. And here's the profile of the blade showing you what symmetrical is. The blade on the right is a UH-1H blade, very easy to produce, made out of aluminum, same shape, top and bottom, very inefficient. The blade on the left, you can see flat on the bottom, slight hump on the top, very, very efficient. Next slide, please. Structural life extension program. The UH-1D panels are made of a picture a solid sheet of aluminum the size of a desk, and it's machined out like a waffle, where they machine out areas of these panels to make it lighter, but because it's shaped like a waffle, it's very, very strong. Most of the aircraft that you have in the inventory here at the Philippine Air Force are needing a refurbishment, but because of the corrosion issues and having all honeycomb panels, it makes it very cost prohibitive to take your aircraft and replace all of those panels and be able to do it cheaper than we can supply you with an upgraded aircraft. These panels have operated in Germany since 1993, and they have no known cases of cracking or damage due to normal wear and tear. And this panel, if you see on the bottom left, that's a solid sheet of aluminum. That's how it's machined out, just like you see there. That extends the life of this helicopter indefinitely. The helicopter is not like an airplane. We don't have wings that flex and all of this. We have rotor blades that when they reach a certain life, you throw them away and you put it on. You have new wings. When the transmission reaches its time life, you overhaul it, you put it on. It's effectively a new helicopter. So we don't have those same fatigue problems that you have with airplanes, where when it reaches a certain fatigue life, you just have to take it out of service. The aircraft can go indefinitely as long as you can keep the corrosion and things like that down to a minimum. You could operate this helicopter as long as you like. Next slide, please. All right, this is a representation of what in the helicopter has been replaced for Slep. In the red area, if you look at the picture of the helicopter body, that whole red area is the floor panels inside of the UH-1, and all of that area has been replaced with the panel just like you see on top. So underneath the floor panel, it looks like that. So I would think anyone would tell you in a UH-1H with a honeycomb floor panel, you load gear inside of it, you're very, very prone to puncturing a very thin skin honeycomb panel. These are solid billet aluminum panels, very durable. You won't have those issues. The other real big issue we have with the UH-1, and I think you could probably do even a survey of your own helicopters, is the blue area, which is the back wall that faces the three aft fuel cells. So they didn't make the compartment smaller, as Ms. Alvarez claims. They took the Slep and they put the honeycomb part of it facing outwards, not in toward the fuel cell. They protruded it outwards, so the fuel cells remain exactly the same. They didn't make any compartments smaller or any of that nonsense that she talks about. Now the green area is the engine deck. As everybody knows, honeycomb engine deck with lots of heat, corrosion. We're forever changing engine decks and T-caps and things that all that support structure is something that we replace very, very often. And in this Slep program, they replaced all of those engine decks with this same items, and they incorporated drains which is very, very important for your environment. When this aircraft's sitting on the ground, there was never a forward drain against the firewall, and when it rained, which it does here often, all that water would sit against the firewall, and it would seep down in, and you corrode the T-caps, and you'd have to replace them. Problem solved. We put drains there. Now the water drains overboard, even when it's sitting. No more corrosion problems under the engine deck. Now the other area is the two areas you see on the tailbone in red, and they've replaced the whole vertical fin spar with a three-piece fin spar, which eliminates the need for the airworthiness directive, which was a real concern even with the U.S. Army and with your aircraft. I know that all the operational aircraft you have now, you've already replaced those somewhere in the neighborhood of $40,000 per aircraft. You guys have already done that because it's a safety issue. These aircraft are done. You won't have to do that, even though the TOR didn't call for it. This is already done. Next slide, please. Now, the engine deck I spoke of, that's the underside. You pull a panel down from the bottom of the helicopter, you look up, and that's what you see on the left on our helicopter, the UH-1D. Now to the right, you can see that's a standard UH-1H. That's a honeycomb panel. There's no support structure. It's just box stock, and you will replace that panel many times throughout the life of that helicopter. The UH-1D, you will never replace that panel unless you crash it. Other than that, on a normal wear and tear, you will never see that panel get replaced. From the back side, with the tailbone removed, the bottom left is the engine deck continued forward all the way up to the tailbone, and that's the modification of Slep. To the right, that's a honeycomb panel in every UH-1H you have and every UE-2 you have. Very prone to corrosion, and you will never replace this panel either on a UH-1D. Next slide, please. Now this is looking from the inside of the helicopter up to the transmission. If you look at that beam going left to right, that's where the transmission mounts from the top side, and that what you see a little point down there is where the cargo hook normally hangs. That whole transmission structure has been replaced with those Slep panels. Very, very robust. UH-1H, all of those panels are honeycomb, and you will replace those over and over. Same with the bottom, that's the outboard side of the engine decks, and you can see that all of that is slept. Next slide, please. Here's what you get with your Slep. All the floor panels are Slep. All the floor panels are bolted in. As anybody knows in the maintenance field, if you have to work on the fuel cells, there's 750 rivets to hold on a UH-1H, hold the fuel panels down from the top side. These have all bolts. You can take the panel off in a few minutes, and you can put it right back in a few minutes. Those rivets are $1.20 a piece every time you replace that fuel cell. You'll never buy another rivet for a fuel cell. Every one of the seating in the aft of this helicopter, unlike the UH-1D, has much improved safety. It's got a 4-point harness for every seat in that helicopter. And the helicopter, or the UH-1H, has just a single lap belt, no shoulder harnesses whatsoever. We also have given a four-place bench crew seat in the helicopter, which increases your crew capacity to 15 passengers. So if we give you a composite main rotor blade that does 600 pounds more, and we give you capacity to seat more people, there's a bonus. Next slide, please. The bolts I was referring to, you look on the left, all of the panels inside of that helicopter, the panels are bolted down, can be taken out in just a few minutes. You have an issue, take it out, fix your problem, back down, you're done. To the right, every one of those rivets has got to be drilled out. Then you have to order 1,000 new rivets, and then you got to put them all back in. To the left is showing you the underside of the floor panels that we're talking about. There's the Slep. They're very, very beefy structure, and you can throw cargo around, guns, ammunition, throw it on the floor, and you're not going to puncture it. On the UH-1H, I think you'll find that almost every one of your helicopters will have puncture holes in it if you've used it in the utility function at all. Next slide, please. Okay. The UH-1D configuration, if you look all the way forward to the left, that's a 4-place crew seat. It can either face forward or backwards. On the UH-1D, or I'm sorry, on the UH-1H, that's a 2-place seat. You got 2 people can sit there versus 4. And you'll notice that all of the seats, everything other than that is virtually identical, with the exception is all of our seating comes with a 4-point safety harnesses so that every passenger has the same protection as the pilot in the event of a crash. And when we talked about earlier about Ms. Alvarez talking about how the fuel cell compartments were much smaller because of Slep, there's behind that panel to the left is the right-hand fuel cell. And you can see that they turned the panel around and did the Slep part of the fuel cell facing the cabin, and then they cover it with plastic so that it's not sharp. But they didn't put the Slep in toward the fuel cell and decrease its capacity. They took the same space and they built it outwards in the opposite direction. So the nonsense of smaller spaces is just an absolute hallucination. Standard cockpit UH-1D. The UH-1D is MVG capable. The UH-1D standard instrument panel is more advanced than UH-1H's standard instrument panel, with the additions such as a radar altimeter and the engine vibration monitoring. Next slide. This is going to give you a zoom all the way through the cockpit of our UH-1D. As you can see, these aircraft are very, very nice. Now we're going to show you the instrument panel in comparison for the D to the H. Layout, there's nothing special that you have to learn. You don't have to go to school. All of the instruments are in the same place. Only thing you have in this aircraft, which the TR asked for radar altimeters, so that would be there anyhow, is radar altimeters. They're U.S. made. They're read in feet just like every other radar altimeter. And we've added the engine vibration monitoring, which is a safety feature. With a single engine helicopter, it's fairly important to know the health of your engine and know that you're having a problem. And this meter will in fact tell you when something is starting to go wrong before it goes terribly wrong. Next slide, please. This is directly out of the flight manual, and we'll give it to you to review, but you'll see the instrument panels are virtually identical, with the exception of we've added, radar altimeter and engine vibration monitoring, but everything is in the same location. You don't have to be separately trained to fly our helicopter versus the H model. Everything's in the same location and has the same fit, form, and function. Next slide, please. Cyclic grips. As part of the upgrade, they developed a cyclic grip to give you a lot more functions and a lot more switches to do more things if you choose to. So on the left is the UH-1D cyclic, and you see how many functions it allows you to have, and it's ergonomically correct so that it fits your hand, and when you sit in one versus the other, I think there's no comparison. One fits your hand very, very nicely. Everything you want to do is at your fingertips. On the right is the UH-1H, and it's what's in every UH-1H, and I believe it's probably in the Huey-2 as well. It's very limited on switches, and it's antiquated. Tailboom advantages. On this tailboom, that top piece you see on the left slide is normally made out of magnesium, which has a tendency that when it fails not to give you any warning. It doesn't crack slowly. Normally it'll fail, and it's catastrophic. So as part of the Slep, they engineered all of that out of a solid cast aluminum. And aluminum is far, far superior to magnesium as far as strength. Going down from there is a 3-piece spar, which the UH-1H does not have. It has a single 1-piece spar that has a tendency to fail without warning. And to the right is the elevator on the tailboom. That elevator, purchased from Bell today, is $31,000. The elevator horn is about $15,000 that holds that in place. On the UH-1H, those are all 3,600-hour items. On the UH-1 Delta, those are on condition. As long as you don't run into them or have an accident with them, you can run those indefinitely the savings alone on that elevator, because it's a commercial part, is well worth doing, because we know that the surplus system just doesn't have any surplus anymore. You have to buy from Bell. Next slide, please. Performance charts. Here's a comparison of the UH-1D and the UH-1H configured as 13 of them are in a standard configuration. All right, so the engines in L-13B, both aircraft HD have the exact same engines. Unlike Ms. Alvarez, she says they have this mysterious engine that only Germans had, but they're the identical engine. The main rotor blades that we have installed are composite. Your H models all had metal. You can run our composite blade. Your parts manual authorizes the use of the composite blade by part number. But the gross mass of the helicopter is where you're going to see the difference. At 10,000 feet, that aircraft, with the weight of the aircraft plus what you loaded it with fuel and crew, will lift 7,690 pounds. That same aircraft in a UH-1 configuration will only lift 6,750 pounds. So now we go to the performance chart of the 8 upgraded helicopters that we've provided. You see the engines changed slightly. It's a T-53-L-703, which is the engine that was used in the AH-1 Cobra. It produces about 300 horsepower additional to what the other T-53-13B does. The aircraft doesn't allow you to pick up more, doesn't allow you to do anything other than use that horsepower when you get up into the real high altitudes. When you get up into 10,000 feet, everything changes for a helicopter. The engine doesn't like to perform as well. The blade doesn't perform as well. So what we did is we give you an engine that'll put out at 10,000 feet a maximum amount of torque that it would at sea level. Where if you had a 13B, that engine at about 6,000 feet, you would start drooping and it wouldn't work for you. But in a side-by-side comparison, a UH-1D versus an H, you get about almost 800 pounds more lift with the Super Delta. The other thing that we've given you with the Super Delta is a fast-fitting straight kit, which is a very, very great performance-enhancing upgrade. And we also gave you a very modern tail rotor blade, which is also composite of an asymmetrical airfoil, just like the main rotor blades. You didn't ask for them. We did this because we wanted to show you how good it can be. And this helicopter right now is as good as it can get. Next slide, please. Okay, this is performance at a hover and versus the Huey 2 versus the D. And you can see that the Huey 2, last price that I know of was quoted to a customer was $5.8 million per helicopter. And this is its performance. You got this helicopter at about $1.5 million, and it'll outperform it. It'll do 7,690 pounds at 10,000 feet, where the Huey 2, as per the performance charts, will do 7,390 pounds. So it's, in our opinion, it's an excellent value. And this one I'll leave with you, but it's basically reiterating what we said, and we put it in a bar format so that when you're looking at it as a layman, you can say, oh, red bar, blue bar. We can see what each one will do and what configuration it's in. Next slide, please. Radio equipment. The UH-1D has all of its radios have been upgraded in the mid-90s. And they're all supportable radios. Unlike the UH-1H, all of the radios, even though they have the same fit, form, function, the technology has changed so much that a lot of our radios are more state-of-the-art. A lot of the radios are contained within the radio itself in the control head without the need of a remote receiver transmitter. And they're all very supportable. I believe that most of the radios you could have serviced right here in Manila from a radio shop. Next slide, please. Here's the radio configuration for the UH-1D. We'll leave that with you in case you want to know where each one of the radios are. But this is everything the TOR called for, and it's you can see that it's much more modern than the H model. There's the H model configuration. You can see it's much older, much more antiquated equipment. Next slide. And we'll skip the altar. Next slide. That's it? Okay. I guess that concludes our presentation.
Mr. Rice, I have here in my possession a so-called export license, and it says that the aircraft has no special electronic warfare or weapon system installed. Let me show it to you so that
Yes, please. This is the revoked one that we turned in. We didn't ship on this export license.
could you repeat what you said?
This is the revoked export license that we showed you. So
Revoked.
Yeah, we Mr. Nguyen did this export license. We suspected they used fraudulent documents. We returned it to the State Department, and the revoked licenses were their answer to us saying they've taken it back. The export license we shipped under was U.S. Commerce, not Department of State. So this
U.S. Commerce, not
Yes.
Department of State.
In October of 2013, the responsibility for the UH-1 helicopter reverted from initial list items, U.S. State Department, to U.S. Commerce controlled. So this license wasn't really much good to us anyhow. When we got ready to ship, we had to get a commerce license, and it was also one of the reasons why we had to do an amendment to the contract, because the gun mounts were still ITAR controlled by the U.S. State Department. So we in fact had to separate them and get two separate licenses to export them individually. They couldn't be attached to each other.
Could you submit a copy of those
Absolutely.
licenses by the Commerce Department?
Absolutely. We have those here.
And as well as the soft copies of all your presentations.
Absolutely.
And favor us with the email hard copies.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Alvarez?
Your Honor.
Yes, there was an allegation, you made an allegation nga, sinabi nyo that Mr. Rice threatened your life.
Yes, Your Honor, and I have an email from him, and I will submit that before.
Can you tell us?
Yes.
Yeah, can you tell us now what happened there?
Yes, he said that if I am not going to cooperate with him with the acceptance of the 21 helicopter, he will, if I'm not mistaken with the exact word, shut me off forever, for life or forever. But then I have that email copy, and then he said,
Shut you off forever?
shut, and then there is also an email telling me that pursuit for life, and shut off forever. Those are the words.
So the threat was made allegedly by email.
Yes, and also by phone calls.
By phone calls. He
yes,
called you.
we are, Mr. Rice and I are having a phone calls as long as 3 hours. 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. Ganyan po kami kahabang mag-usap.
While he was in the States.
Yes.
And what did he state basically dun sa phone calls?
Gusto po niya na ipa-accept ko yung 21 helicopters.
So they wanted you to accept the 21
Yes. May mga sinasabi pa po siya na do the things that only Dory can do. Kasi he believed na with my efficiency, ako po ang makakapagpa-accept ng 21 helicopters. Kagaya nga po ng presentation niya ngayon, kung gaano kaganda ang helicopter, ganyan po din niya ako binola. Ganyan din po niya sinabi sa akin ang helicopter na yan. Kaya from the very start, ako ay nakiki-cooperate, tumutulong, and lahat na lang gagawin ko para lang matuloy ang project na ito. Even Yusek Manalo acknowledged that in one of his interview, saying na I am the exact word is, tagapagtanggol ng project na ito. Dahil yung pong pinresent niya ngayon, ganyan po niya ako binola.
Who said tagapagtanggol ng project na ito?
Si Yusek Manalo po, during his interview with the Dos por Dos.
Yusek Manalo, do you confirm?
I was talking to Yusek Manalo earlier. Can she repeat what she said earlier?
Please speak louder. You were referring to?
No, I did not mention that she is the tagapagtanggol ng project. I never mentioned that to her.
I said sa Dos por Dos interview, he's not listening. I said during his interview sa Dos por Dos, sinabi niya na ako ang tagapagtanggol ng project na ito at makikipagsuntukan daw po ako kapag may nanira sa project. Or if somebody else would say something bad about the project. So we can summon Dos por Dos for that interview.
Your Honor.
Yes, let's wait to be acknowledged before we... Yusek Manalo.
Thank you, Your Honor. There were good times in the relationship of Ms. Alvarez, Mr. Rice, and the Department of National Defense.
Yes.
I would say, mahaba po yung panahon na kami ay maganda yung relationship. And during those days na maganda yung relationship namin, totoong walang pwedeng magsabi na masama yung helicopter. Walang pwedeng magsabi na may anomalyang nangyayari dito sa project na yan sa harap ni Ms. Alvarez. Ang tansya ko noon, makikipagpatayan siya sa sinuman na magsasabi na pangit ang helicopter, na may hindi magandang deal na nangyayari dyan. But those were good days. Nagbago ang senaryo nitong sa sinasabi nga ni Mr. Rice na kanina doon sa kanyang presentation, at a certain point in time, pumunta si Ms. Alvarez sa US, nag-usap sila, humihingi ng certain percent. Kinakailangang ibigay sa kanya agad, at kung hindi ibibigay, kakansilahin niya yung kontrata. Totoo po.
But did Ms. Alvarez have the power to cancel the contract?
Hindi ko po alam. Ang alam ko, wala siyang power because terminating the contract has to go to a process. May proseso po yan. Nobody can just say, I will terminate the contract. Not even the Secretary of National Defense with his power can just say, you terminate it. It has to go through a process. And the reason for termination must be in accordance with what is mandated by Republic Act 9184 and its implementing rules and regulation. I admit that noong panahong maganda ang samahan namin, naniniwala ako na talagang si Ms. Alvarez makikipagpatayan kahit kanino. But those were good days between us and between Mr. Rice and Ms. Alvarez.
Those were the good days, huh?
Those were the good days, Your Honor.
Yeah, as evidenced by the pictures. But Ms. Alvarez, let's go back to the threat on your life. You allege that Mr. Rice sent an Australian.
Yes.
To
Totoo po
threaten
yun.
you?
Yes, and also doon
What
po
did they what could you recount the circumstances and exactly what these persons said?
Doon po sa presentation ni Mr. Rice, he already acknowledged that he sent a negotiator to come out with an agreement. If I have an unaccounted negative balance owing him, bakit ka naman magpapadala ng isang negotiator? He already acknowledged an Australian. Nagpadala po talaga siya. May mga kondisyon siya na sinasabi, kasama na nga po doon yung cooperation ko daw po to have the 21 helicopters accepted. May ino-offer po siyang pera sa akin upon signing of the contract, and also may ino-offer po siyang bonuses after the delivery of the 21st helicopter. Basically, ang mga presentation po ni Mr. Rice is an acknowledgement of my affidavit. It's just that there are facts na tinitwist niya. One,
Ms. Alvarez, let's go to the threat first. The
Yes.
threat on your life by the Australian. You
yes.
said.
No, the threat of my life was made by Mr. Rice himself. The Australian guy is for negotiation. He sent the guy to negotiate with me and have the 21 helicopters accepted.
I see. So Mr. Rice was the one that threatened your
Yes,
life?
he was the one who personally threatened me through email and most of phone calls.
Could you please submit those emails?
Yes, I have a copy of those emails and I will submit those, but most of them are phone calls.
Okay. The phone calls, I presume you used a cell phone.
Yes, yes.
So, okay. A cell phone, so it's either Smart or Globe, right?
Pag po kasi tumatawag, yes, yung sa akin po ay, alam po niya pareho ang Smart and Globe ko, pareho niya pong tinatawagan yon. And kapag tumatawag po kasi siya sa akin, ang lumalabas lang po 000. Every time po na tumatawag siya sa akin, ang nasa monitor po ng cellphone ko nakalagay 000.
Okay. There's also this allegation that you were demanding certain sums of money and that you, as presented by Mr. Rice, and that you threatened the stoppage of the contract. What could you say to that, Ms. Alvarez?
There was demand, yes, but there's no threat of stoppage. Una, kaya po naman nahinto ang trabaho dahil hindi po niya ako binabayaran doon sa mga tao. Plus, that's the time na nagre-research na rin ako, so nagpatong-patong na po yon. December po yon. Nagpunta po ako sa facility niya October. And nakita ko nga po doon yung nakalagay sa affidavit ko na hindi siya qualified. And I'm doing the research already until January, February. So, hindi po ako basta-basta nag-come out. Kagaya ng sinabi niya, I am not an helicopter expert. So,
But Ms. Alvarez, he was also alleging that you went to his facilities
yes.
after working hours. And therefore, there were
Pwede
no...
po ba yung after ko mag-opisina, pupunta ako sa US? Hindi po. It was a week travel. Kasi hindi naman po pwedeng after office, pupunta ako ng US, tapos babalik ulit ako.
No, I mean, you just show up. He alleged that you showed up in the facility after working hours. Is that true?
What facility are you referring
The
to?
facility of Mr. Rice that he just presented on his...
Ay, that's US po. California po yun.
Yes, in the States.
So,
He was alleging that you just showed up. Am I correct, Mr. Rice? Is that your allegation?
Yes, and I have her emails, text messages where she's in a hotel saying, "Can you come pick me up now?" And it's like 4:19 in the afternoon. So in the U.S., our culture, we start early, we finish early. So by 4 o'clock, our guys are gone. And so if she was around, even in her statement, she says there was only my family and one guy named Will. And her own picture off her own Facebook has her next to two guys working on the helicopter. I mean, it's just an outright lie.
Ms. Alvarez?
meron po akong text messages na nagsasabing nandyan na po yung sundo ko sa labas. Sinusundo po nila ako. May araw po. Yung first day, yes. I think 2 o'clock. Kasi may jet lag pa po ako noon. Pero may mga text messages po sila sa akin na nandyan na yung sundo ko sa labas as early as 6 or 7 a.m. So, hindi po totoo yung sinasabi niya na hindi ko lang inaabutan. 'Cause
Did you keep these text
Yes,
messages?
yes, and I am willing to submit a
Please
screen
submit.
grab of those.
Yes.
So this is a proof that Mr. Rice is an expert in twisting facts.
What about the allegations that you pocketed some of the amounts that Mr. Rice sent to you?
Siya na nga po ang may sabi na nagagalit daw ako at nagagalit daw siya. Pinag-aawayan namin yung negative balance. In-acknowledge na nga po niya na may negative balance siya sa akin sa mga pinasweldo ko sa mga tao. In-acknowledge na po niya yon sa kanyang presentation. At yung sinabi po niya sa kanina na ako'y nagpunta ng Hong Kong dahil ako daw ay meron sa bulsa ko na pera. Wala naman po siyang binigay sa akin kahit 5 na nagpunta ako sa California. Wala po siyang ibinigay sa akin kahit $1 para magpunta sa Hong Kong or wherever. At yung pong mga kinuha niya sa Facebook account ko na picture na nagdi-distribute ako ng Christmas, that is a tradition. Pamula pa po nung naging CPA ako, namimigay na po ako at nagpapapasko na po ako sa pamilya ko. Mami ko po naman yung nasa picture, ano naman sama doon. Pasko po yun. Every year ginagawa ko po yun kahit nung hindi ko pa po siya kilala. At yung pong pera na yon ay hindi po ganoon kalaki kagaya ng sinasabi niya. At yung total po ng pera na sinasabi niyang ipinadala niya sa akin, doon sa naunang presentation niya, nakalagay na po doon kung saan napunta yung ipinadala niya. Kasi nagpapadala po siya ng ganung kalaking pera kapag may specific na pupuntahan. Hindi naman po papunta sa akin. At marami po kaming exchanges na or email exchanges na makapagpapatunay na kapag nagpadala siya, may negative balance na siya sa akin. Therefore, nagpadala siya ng pera to pay expenses, plus kulang yon, binayaran ko, ni-reimburse niya ako. And coming from his own mouth, sinabi na niya na those are reimbursement.
So when you say negative balance, you mean
Reimbursement.
you advance the money
Yes,
first?
yes. Kasi po ay, una, hindi naman po pwedeng mahinto ang trabaho. Ako po ang nagpapasweldo. Hindi rin naman po pwedeng mahinto ang pagbabayad ng fuel.
They were alleging that they sent something like $80 a day and then you were paying $34. The figures I'm not too accurate.
Nasa affidavit ko po ang tungkol sa bagay na iyan na ako po ay inoffer niya ng negosyo of which I will be the one to provide for the workers. So binigyan niya po ako ng ganoong figure. However, kapag humingi po ako ng pera sa kanya, yun lang po ang hinihingi ko. Pero hindi lang po yun ang gastos ko. Sinabi ko po sa kanya na ito ang ibibigay natin, which is 1,500 a day is big enough for us. Hindi naman po yan plus sabi ko sa kanya may taxes pa yan, plus yung pagkain pa yan, plus ito ang liquidation. Maayos po kami noon, ginagawa lang po niya yung issue. Actually, it's not an issue before, so ginagamit lang po niya yan na laban sa akin, but everything is accounted for. In fact, tinakot pa po niya ako na ipapa-forensic audit daw niya ako. Sabi ko, okay, go ahead. So nagpapunta po siya ng tao.
There is a request that that you can speak in English so that they could understand.
With due respect, Your Honor, kagaya po noong nakaraang Senate hearing, ang hearing po na ito ay gusto kong iparating sa ating mga kababayan. Ako po ay matagal na nag-a-adjust dito sa Amerikanong katabi ko sa ilang taon na kapakikipag-usap ko sa kanya. It's about time na mag-adjust siya sa atin. He's not equipped with Tagalog din. May abogado siya sa tabi niya. Let them interpret. Ako, sinasabi ko ito at ang Senate hearing na ito ay ginagawa ko para sa bansa natin at para sa mga kababayan natin, hindi para paboran siya.
So, Ms. Alvarez, yung sinasabi nila, yung lahat, ginagawa mo lahat ito, ano po?
Opo.
How were you able to do these things if you were employed, while you were employed by the BIR?
Ang communication po namin, yung time zone po natin, ang daytime po natin ay nighttime nila. Ang nighttime po natin, daytime nila. So, yun naman pong pagpunta nila dito, of which kasama nila ko, I am filing a leave of absence. So, yung pong day-to-day namin, or night-to-night, every night, communication namin, or early in the morning, wala po yun sa office hour.
Wala sa office hours.
Wala po, kasi po ang working hour nila ay gabi po sa atin.
Okay. Before I turn it over to Senator JV. Ms. Alvarez, can we just, after this, could you just coordinate with my staff? Because some of the annexes you submitted, malabo yung pag-xerox. So, baka kailangan ulitin natin. Kasi
I am willing to submit a soft copy po para makapag-print po kayo ng
yun.
clearer.
Mas maganda. Mas
yes,
maganda.
meron po akong complete set
Okay.
ng soft copy.
Sige. Marami pa tayong tanong, pero we'll turn it over to Attorney Senator JV. And then after Senator JV, you want to make a presentation? I understand.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, Senator JV, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Alvarez, the first time that you came out in the media and then thereafter sa first hearing,
Yes.
I admire your courage for exposing all of this. Nabilib kami sa iyo. Sabi mo, kalaban mo ang DND, ang AFP. Pero, kung maalala mo, nung unang-unang hearing, tinanong ko na sa inyo bago tayo nagtapos, andito si Mr. ang ating chairman, tinanong ko sa inyo kung anong yung motibo. At paulit-ulit, sabihin ko lang, I asked you what your motive was in the first hearing, and you told us that it was because of love of country, because you wanted our armed forces, our Air Force in particular, to have modern helicopters.
Tama po yun.
And during that time, I told you, sinabi ko sa inyo, parang maganda na sana, pero medyo mahirap paniwalaan. No? Na mahirap na ikaw ay lumubog masyado o masyado kang na-expose dito sa ganitong transaksyon para lamang na gusto mo magkaroon ng helicopter, ang ating pong ng modernong helicopter ng ating armed forces. So, uulitin ko po muli, Ms. Alvarez, kasi sayang kung totoo man, maganda sana ang iyong expose kung sasabihin mo siguro sa amin dito ngayon kung ano yung totoong motibo. Ikaw ba ay meron kang commission dito? Meron ka bang parte sa transaksyon na ito? Kasi ang parang sinasabi mo, lahat ginagawa mo, lahat ng binabayad, all the things that, all the funds that Mr. Rice is sending, is you use it for the expenses needed here. No, you are saying that for the benefit of Mr. Rice. You're saying that you are here in this transaction because you wanted only to have new and modern choppers for the armed forces. So that will be a little bit hard to believe, no? So kung ano man, sabihin nyo na siguro mas maganda ngayon sa committee to, kung ano po talaga ang naging motibo ninyo para mas maganda mas makapaniwala.
Nung una, wala naman po talaga akong pagkakataon na maging bahagi nitong project na ito. But then, nagkaroon ako ng pagkakataon na maging audience lang noong panahon na yon. So, natutuwa ho ako na magkakaroon tayo ng helicopter na ganyan. Until dumating na nga si Mr. Rice dito, na siya na mismo ang nag-offer sa akin. Of which, inilagay ko naman po yan sa affidavit ko, what transpired during that time na nag-offer siya sa akin ng 3% commission. And he also offered me a long-time business. Hindi lang basta commission. Isa po itong long-time business na isinakripisyo ko na po dahil nalaman ko nga po na ang helicopter na dinideliver niya ay inilalagay sa panganib ang ating mga sundalo. Dahil nakikita ko po na niloloko nila kasama ni Yusek Manalo at saka ni Mr. Rice ang ating armed forces. Pinaniniwala po nila kagaya ng presentation nila. Niya kanina, ganyan po niya ako pinaniwala. So hindi niyo po ako masisisi na naniwala ako sa kanya. Hindi po ako helicopter guy, kaya nagtagal po ako bago matutunan ng lahat. Ni-research ko po ito. Yung sinasabi niya po sa fuel cell, siya po mismo ang nagsabi sa akin ng tungkol sa fuel cell na yan na hindi pwedeng palitan, mas slim ito, kaysa ganito. Bakit ba niya nasabi yan? Kasi sinabi na po sa akin ng Air Force, kasi ako po ang humaharap sa inspection sinabi na po nila sa akin na hindi crashworthy at self-sealing. So, pumunta po ako kay Mr. Rice, kinausap ko siya, kasi lahat ng problema gusto ko, ano po kasi ako, pro-compliance ako. Kung kaya nating i-comply, why not? So, sabi ko sa kanya, bakit hindi na lang natin palitan? Anyway, yun naman ang nasa TOR. Sabi niya sa akin, hindi po pwede kasi hindi kasya.
But Ms. Alvarez, kasi kanina, it was in the presentation of Mr. Rice during your transactions.
Yes.
He presented a few email communications between
Yes.
you and himself. And in those emails, there seemed to be a demand from you on your part for payment, no? Yung pay, tatlo yun eh. So can you explain?
Ganyan po talaga kami mag-usap ni Mr. Rice. The invoice was prepared based on his instruction. Kasi ang sabi niya, bawat perang ipapadala niya, kailangan niyang isubstantiate ng invoice dahil kailangan sa US for his taxation. So lahat yan ay instruction niya. Ngayon, yung kinukuha ko naman na commission, na 3%, ayun naman po ay talagang belongs to me, supposed to be, of which hindi ko na ho kinuha. That time ho kasi hindi ko pa alam itong mga depekto na ito. Medyo meron na po akong konting understanding, kagaya po na sinasabi ng mga nag-i-inspeksyon ng helicopter, pero hindi ko po confirm, kasi nga po, hindi nga po ako helicopter guy. That time, gusto ko lang munang bumitaw. So sabi ko, kukunin ko yung commission ko, pagkatapos bibitaw ako. Pero hindi ko pa po alam that time na ito ay lagay sa panganib, itong mga helicopter na ito, makakapaglagay sa panganib sa buhay ng ating mga sundalo. Noon pong nalaman ko na yan, kahit ino-offer na po niya sa akin ang commission ko, hindi ko po tinanggap. Kahit po 5, wala po akong kinuha sa kanya.
Mr. Rice, do you confirm that Ms. Alvarez did not receive any commission?
I can confirm I don't speak Tagalog for sure.
Yeah.
I did not receive any
She said
commission
that
from
she
him.
did.
Excuse me. Please wait to be acknowledged. Let's not.
So I find it
Excuse me. I understand the emotions involved, but please let's maintain decorum. Wait till you're acknowledged before you talk. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Rice, please.
I've dealt with Ms. Alvarez for almost a year. She never had trouble speaking English to me. If you're going to have to face an accuser of something, you would like to be able to understand what she's saying. She's talking to you. I have no idea what she's saying, and you're looking at me for answers, and I don't know how to give them. I don't understand what you're saying.
Ms. Alvarez said that she never took the commission, even the 3% commission from you. Did she receive
I
that?
can tell you that we have a forensic audit, we showed you the figures of what's missing. We can also show you that she says that we had a negative balance of 200 and some thousand. If that's the case and she's funded that, I think that I need an application for the BIR, because if you make that kind of money, I don't have that kind of money in my account. How can she? As far as all of her time spent, I've got text messages showing you every time she's picked me up when she was here. It was all day, every day. I can show you how many vacations she's went on. After we started paying her, she was on vacation constantly. She went to Canada for a PQ. She comes all the way to California, spends a week. How much vacation time does the BIR employee get? I don't get that vacation. I think that's where you should be looking, is say, when she makes these allegations, how she did it after hours. You can't do a PQ in Canada after hours. She was there for how many days? A week? She was in my facility for a week.
Also, Mr. Rice, before I ask Ms. Alvarez, with the 7 accepted choppers, did you give commission for Ms. Alvarez of what was due her?
She never asked for any money, but there was a lot of money missing. And when she asked me for a commission, I said, Ms. Alvarez, I've always thought you should be compensated because you did a wonderful job for us at the beginning. But she's always given this love my country thing, but actually she couldn't because she was the BR. I didn't know she was a BR employee. It came later that we learned that. So what I said is that if we're going to give you compensation for your duties of what you've done for us, what we have to do first is we have to square up the past. So let's account for everything I've sent. $410,000. She's saying that $410,000 is gone, and I owe her another $200,000, which she funded out of her own BIR income. So and then she comes and says, in addition to that, the money that you sent me for fuel, the fuel bill's not paid. I had to go back and pay that fuel bill with money sent to her to pay fuel. I had to go pay equipment rentals, things that she invoiced me for, sent the money for. It was gone. Money I sent for attorney Lena, it was missing. for his part in being our representative. She picks me up at the airport, knowing I'm going to see Attorney Lena, and says, "Oh, by the way, I know you sent 100,000 for Attorney Lena, but I only gave him 22,000 pesos, which is $10,000 for his commission. I pay my bills. I do what I say I'm going to do." But she started to extort me, and I said, "I'm the whistleblower here, if truth be known." She comes in and tries to tell me that all these bad things are happening, and the first thing I do is I go to the Department of Defense and say, "Look, guys, something bad's happening here. I need some help." I didn't try to cover it up. I didn't try to pay anybody. I did contrary. I went to the source and said, "We've got a problem," and they directed me on how we should fix it, and that was by terminating Ms. Alvarez.
So, Ms. Alvarez, hindi mo ba talaga kinuha o hindi binigay sa'yo? In English na lang. So, Mr. Rice would understand. Did you not accept
I did not accept, Your Honor.
the supposed commission? Or
I did not.
It was not given to you?
I did not accept anything in any way, and all the money he sent to me are all accounted for. The time that we are doing the audit, the time he realized that he's having a negative balance, he just left me. He just sent somebody and talk about it like, "I'm going to subject you to forensic audit." Sabi ko, go ahead, let's do it. Yung lawyer po niya na sinasabi niya na mag-o-audit, nandito po. Ako po mismo ang nagsabi sa kanya to clear my name, go ahead. Ako po mismo ang nagsabi sa mga tao niya na go ahead, do it, and I will cooperate. Kasi kapag ginawa niya po yun, mapapatunayan ko na mamalaki utang niya sa akin. At doon sa sinasabi niya po na saan ko daw kinuha yun, meron po akong loan, isinanla ko po ang aking nabili at hinulug-hulugan sa maraming taon na maliit na condominium, sinanla ko po yun sa video, and I can prove that.
So, before we move on, Mr. Chair, to the next topic, right now, do you already say that all of this turned sour because of a failed transaction? Kumbaga, you did not understand each other. No? Hindi kayo nagkaintindihan. So, it's not really because of, it's not only because of, you wanted choppers alone. Kumbaga, there was also a falling out of sorts.
To clarify,
Of sa
Your
business
Honor,
transaction.
itong kinaklarify natin, itong pinag-uusapan natin, this was the time na hindi ko pa naiintindihan yan. This was the time na gusto ko lang nang bumitaw kasi nakita ko hindi siya qualified, pero hindi ko pa po naiintindihan yung stake na or yung paglalagay sa panganib sa buhay ng ating mga sundalo. At yung pong sinasabi natin na motibo ko nung una, gusto ko lang magkaroon ng helicopter ang ating bansa, hindi ko pa po siya nakikilala noon. Hanggang sa dumating po, so we're talking about different time zone. Noong dumating po si Mr. Rice dito, we talk about business na. So, andito po ako sa delivery as business na, pero nung pong hindi ko pa po naiintindihan yan. Okay? Nung pong panahon na sinasabi ko sa inyo na itong pinag-uusapan namin sa hour na nag-falling out that thing, hindi ko pa po naiintindihan yan tungkol sa mga helicopter na yan. So, kung ika-clarify po natin, nung time po na naintindihan ko na lahat ng diferensya at hindi niya pag-comply at anong epekto nung non-compliance niya na yon, dinisregard ko po lahat, kahit sarili kong pera at kahit yung reimbursement ko, kahit commission ko, dinisregard ko po lahat ng iyon. Dahil ito po ay aggravated. During January 25, medyo nagre-research, madami na ako research niya, may mga understanding na ako, plus aggravated pa po.
That's all, Mr. Judge. Just wanted to clarify the
So-
motives. Thank you, Ms. Alvarez. No? At
Opo.
least now that it is known that there was also money involved, the transaction did not.
With Mr. Rice, Your Honor.
Yes.
With
Do you
Mr.
confirm that? Do you
Yes.
confirm that?
Yes. Yun nga po ang gusto ko lang i-clarify. Huwag po nating paghalu-haluin. Yung time zone ni Mr. Nguyen, yung time zone na andito lang ako, gusto ko lang siyang tulungan sa simula, hanggang sa bandang gitna, in-offer na niya ako ng business na. So, Your Honor, this is to show you na sa isang insider, na isang business involved in here, legally speaking, there's no extortion. How can you ascertain a person of being an extortionist kung sila mismo, si Mr. Rice, ang nag-acknowledge na ako ay insider? So, I categorically deny that there was an extortion. I am not qualified to be one.
Okay. In the course of the allegations, Ms. Alvarez and Mr. Rice, you both have said you have one email as proof of your assertion, and text messages. So please submit them so that we could
Yes, Your Honor.
have a copy of them.
I don't know what she's talking about as far as death threats, but I can, from what she says with shutting you off, maybe it's slang on our part, but shutting you off means I'm not going to send you any more money. It doesn't mean I'm going to kill you.
Okay.
So when I say I'm going to shut you off, it means that we're not going to do business anymore. So for her to say that and say the rest of our conversation on the phone, we had very little phone conversation once she started making these demands, and once she started, our crew stopped working, and she said, I'm going to shut down this project unless you send me the money up front. So, and she talks about being qualified extortionist. Maybe I don't know what qualifies an extortionist, but when you send me a contract and you say, sign it, send it back, pay, or I'm going to shut down your project, that's extortion in my definition. Maybe not your own, but that's mine for sure.
Okay then. So to put it to rest, please submit the email and the text, whatever you wish to submit, so that we can evaluate them properly.
I have my text message on a phone that I've deactivated, but I have it here in front of me. I can show you that when she came to California, that on the days where she said that we had nobody working, it was like 4:19 in the afternoon. She says, I'm going to get in the shower now, then I'll call you when I'm ready. My guys work till 4, they're gone, and she spent 2 days at my facility, and then she was off to Disneyland. We took her to San Francisco, she got on a plane, and she went to Disneyland. She came back next day to the airport. She'd arrived in Manila the very next day on an airplane to Disneyland in Hong Kong with her family, all on a BIR employee with me owing her $200 and some thousand. I sent her $400,000, and all of these activities we're seeing on her Facebook, she's telling on herself. I got all this money I'm distributing at Christmas. I'm going on all these vacations. I can't get a hold of you. Performance bond gets canceled. Money's not coming back. And now she has a problem with all of these things, these anomalies. At what point does she have a problem with anomalies? She was involved with them by her own admission since 2012, if these are true. So now that I refuse to continue to pay her, now these anomalies are bothering her because she loves her country. I mean, I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to figure this one out.
Okay then. The Blue Ribbon staff is directed to coordinate with Mr. Rice so you could give your text messages from your cell phone. But I'd like to make a statement with regards to motivation, because maraming pinag-usapan ngayon tungkol sa motibo ni Ms. Alvarez, no? Para sa akin, regardless of the motive, masama o hindi, regardless of the motive, ang pinakalayunin natin, our goal here, is to find out, one, was the law followed? Were the procedures of the law on purchase of helicopters followed? Nasunod ba yung proseso ng batas? O nalabag ba yung batas? Regardless of motive. Number two, regardless of motive, was there corruption? Did the government officials in charge of the purchase of the helicopters receive bribes? Tumanggap ba yung mga opisyalis ng suhol na in charge ng pagbibid ng helicopters? At number three, yung specifications. Were the specifications of the helicopters tailor-made or changed so that they would favor one supplier versus another? Inayos ba, dinoktor ba yung specifications para makapabor sa isang supplier? Yung ang importante ngayon, those are the important points that we have to find out. Okay? Now, Ms. Alvarez, please proceed with your presentation.
Doon po sa nasa control room, may I request that we start with the UH1D presentation. I would like to clarify the presentation of Mr. Rice. Gusto kong sagutin yon. And then we proceed with this one. The file name is UH1D presentation. Hindi po. Yung pong helicopter po yung una. Ang nakalagay po ay UH1D presentation. Ang first slide po niya, may picture po ng Rice Aircraft Services na UH1D. I've been dealing with Mr. Rice since October 2013. So kahit papano, nababasa ko na yung mga iniisip niya, nakabisa ko na rin kung paano siya magsinungaling, nakabisa ko na rin kung paano siya magpaikot ng facts. Kaya in-anticipate ko na ipipresent niya ito. Kaya naghanda ako. This is to show you na nakikilala ko siya kung paano magsinungaling.
Ms. Alvarez, this presentation will be about yung
yan
deal,
po.
yung tungkol sa deal.
Yan po ang
Okay, sige,
presentation niya, exactly. Exactly
Please go
kung ano
ahead.
po
Please go
yung
ahead. Please proceed.
sinersent niya kanina. Okay. In the slide, you will see the Rice Aircraft Services Incorporated presents UH1D. Ito pong presentation na ito po ang ginamit naming tatlo. Ako, si Mr. Rice, at si Matthew Rice, doon sa sinasabi ko sa affidavit ko na nag-present kami before the Philippine Air Force. Present during that time was Colonel Amano and the rest of the other Philippine Air Force officials. Dito, sa presentation na ito, nabola ako ng husto. Ako na mabola, okay lang yon kasi hindi ko naman to naiintindihan. Pero, yung mga eksperto, kagaya ni Colonel Amano, lalo na ni Yusek Manalo, ay hindi ko mapaniwalaan na mabobola nito. Next slide, please. Etong main rotor blade na ito, presentation, ginamit ito ni Yusek Manalo during his first presentation about the advantage of UH1D. Dito sa main rotor blade na ito, makikita ninyo na yung composite blade daw, advantageous, dahil daw yung metal at saka yung composite, yung difference ng dalawa, ay merong, yung isa may 10,000 hours, yung isa may 2,400 hours. Napakaganda pong tingnan. Kung ating, in a first glance, mabobola po talaga tayong lahat. Pero, aanhin nyo naman po ang 10,000 oras na hindi nyo naman po magagamit sa paglipad. Yan po ay makapagpapatunay sa records ng Philippine Air Force na sa aking natatandaan ay ini-request ni Senator JV na isubmit. Pero hanggang ngayon, sa pagkakalam ko, wala pa. Based on that, that record, we can verify na itong 10,000 hours advantage na sinasabi nila ay useless. Next slide, please. Ito rin yung blade. Kasama po ito. Next slide, please. Yan. Ito po yung mga blades na sinasabi nila. Ito po yung inadapt ni Yusek Manalo sa presentation niya nung nauna. Isa po ito sa pambobola sa ating lahat. Yan. Structural Life Extension Program. Kung titingnan po ninyo, napakaganda ng Slep. Iyan po yung nasa kaliwa. Yung nasa kanan naman, iyan yung sinasabi niyang UH1D, UH1H, napakapangit, ano po. Pero kung titingnan po ninyo, hindi naman po ganyan yung current nating UH1H. Pero sige, bigyan natin siya ng patas na laban, gamitin natin mismo ang kanyang presentation. Ito ba, na napakagandang ito versus honeycomb plus itong Slep na ito, nasaan ang technology transfer nito? Kapag ba ang Philippine Air Force lumipad on a combat mission, tinamaan ng bala, kasi let's speak about airframe, tinamaan ng bala, paano mo i-repair? That's one question. Una, sinabi sa TOR, kailangan mo ng verifiable history, complete documentation, pero wala isang pirasong papel plus certification na ginawa mo ni Mr. Rice. Paano mo i-repair yung Slep na yan? Wala kang technology, wala kang history, at wala kang record. Importante po yan, and the Air Force can verify that. Magkano ang magagastos natin kung sakasakaling tamaan ng bala yan? Mayroon bang kapasidad ang Philippine Air Force to repair that Slep? Definitely none. So kapag tinamaan yan, kahit gaano kaganda yan, hindi na po magagamit ang helicopter. Next slide, please. Ito, continuation lang to ng Slep. So sinasabi ko sa inyo, napakaganda ng Slep. Totoo po yan. But that is just a mere beautification of the airframe. Kung pag-uusapan po natin, bakit po ba binili ang helicopter na ito? Ang helicopter na ito ay binili for combat mission. Pero, ito po bang ganda na to magagamit natin sa combat mission kung hindi naman siya NVG compatible, hindi siya self-sealing at hindi siya crashworthy? Proven na po ito nung hindi ito ginamit ng Air Force during the BBL all-out war. What do you call that? BIFF all-out war. So, aanhin mo yan. Maganda yan. Inaamin ko, pati ako, nabighani sa ganda niya. Pero, iyan po ay dapat add-on lang. Add-on feature. Hindi po yan dapat major requirement. Dahil sa ginawa siyang major requirement, at dahil ang UH1D lang ni Mr. Rice ang merong currently has Slep, na-deprive po ang government natin. That is disadvantageous to the government because the government was deprived of having a qualified helicopter compliant with the terms of reference, and the government is also deprived of having a qualified supplier. Doon pa lang sa mga presentation, even sa mga nauna sinasabi natin na Mr. Rice has no financial contracting capability. And it was proven during the failure of bidding. So, aanhin mo ang Slep. Bakit ang Slep ay nandyan? Iyan ang tanong. During the negotiation, ano ba ang rule? You have to figure out, bakit siya lang yung sumasali? Bakit siya lang yung sumasali sa bidding? You have to figure out and you have to negotiate. Kaya nga negotiation eh. Pag tinanggal mo ba ito, magiging kawalan ba siya doon sa combat features or combat capability ng ating helicopters? Definitely not. So masasabi ko, itong presentation ni Mr. Rice ay isang panliling lang sa sambayan ng Pilipino. Next slide please. Iyan yung mga Slep panel, which I have said, hindi natin yung kailangan. It should have been just an add-on feature. Bakit ba natin i-deprive ang ating Air Force na magkaroon ng ganyang kaganda? Pero hindi yan dapat major requirement, as I have said. Next slide, please. Next. Okay. Main cabin, maximum crew 15, maximum crew 13. It has nothing to do with the mission capability. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yung mga tornilyo na yan, wala namang kinalaman yan sa combat capability. Yung pinagmamalaki niya kanina, na UH-1D lang daw ang may radar altimeter. Okay, radar altimeter meron siya. Wala daw ang UH-1H. Pero tingnan nyo, sa Terms of Reference, page 31, it is a requirement. Therefore, whatever variant na i-deliver ng supplier, there must be a radar altimeter. So, hindi niya advantage yon. Next slide, please. Next. Okay. Kung titingnan ninyo dyan sa instrument panel na pinakikita niya, meron dyan, yung itinuturo nitong ating arrow na kulay pula. 1, 2, 3, 4. Iyan yung panel lights. Kung titingnan ninyo, kulay puti siya. Dito sa UH-1H na sinasabi, pinapakita niya, napakaluma kasi. Napakaluma ng ginamit niya. But sabi ko nga, sige, bigyan natin ng patas na laban, gamitin natin ang presentation niya. Pero tingnan nyo, meron siyang kulay blue. Yun ang tinatawag na filter. Iyan po ay nakakatulong sa night vision goggles. Hindi po masamakit sa mata kapag meron yan. Kaya kahit gaano kaluma UH-1H natin, nagamit pa rin, hindi nagamit. Next slide, please. Next. Etong cyclic grip, hindi naman po ito nakaka-boost o nakakadagdag sa capability natin during combat mission. So wala lang yan. Again, kung ito ay maganda, dapat ito ay isang add-on feature lang. So it has nothing to do with the mission, combat mission capability. Next slide, please. Tailboom advantage, as I have said, kung anumang advantages na sinasabi na yan, aanin mo yung mga advantage na yan. Kung hindi mo naman nagagamit sa combat mission, ang mga helicopter. Ang helicopter binili para gamitin sa combat mission, pero hindi nagagamit, aanhin mo yan. So, yan po ang aking pantapat sa kanyang presentation na punong-puno ng kasinungalingan at pambobola. Ito pong sinasabi niya na performance at hover, hindi naman po importante yan eh. Useless naman po yan, performance chart lang po yan. Next slide, please. Next. Next. Radio naman po ito. Sabi niya, advantage daw ang radio. During the time na nandun ako, walang ginawa ang Air Force kundi tumawag sa akin dahil sira ang radyo. So, nagpapadala po ako ng tao, ng technician, para mag-ayos niyan, halos araw-araw. So, aanhin mo yung sinasabi niyang maganda kung lagi namang sira. Next slide, please. At wala po kaming pamalit. Yung pong pamalit, kapag nasisira yan, doon kami kumukuha sa ibang unit para lang mapalitan. Next, excuse me, pakibalik po. Okay, next slide, please. Next, they just speak about the radio. As I have said, laging sira. And then yan, yung sinasabi niyang armor alternative, wala naman po yan. Kahit po magkaroon tayo ng ocular inspection, yan pong nasa sahig na yan, na sinasabi niyang armor alternative, wala po yan. Meron pa ba? I think that's the end of it. And yung pong armor seat, requirement din po yan sa TOR. Kaya wag niyo sasabihin na advantage yun sa kanya because that is a requirement. Okay, next slide please, kung meron pa. Okay, kung wala yung supposed to be first presentation ko po, please. Thank you. Meron pa po, inuna ko lang po yun, Your Honor, kasi po nakita ko, actually anticipated ko na yan dahil nababasa ko na po ang takbo ng utak ng aking dating kasama. So, I've been dealing with him for a long time. So, nababasa ko po kung ano iniisip niya at kung paano niya tayo lulukuhin.
You're going to your next presentation?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, continue.
Okay. Sabi niya, hindi daw po ako eksperto sa helicopter. Inaamin ko po yon. At iyan po ay inamin ko na pamula pa sa simula. Pero, hindi po ibig sabihin na yung mga maliliit na bagay ay hindi natin maiintindihan, kagaya ng kung niloloko tayo o hindi. At dahil nga hindi ako eksperto, nag-research po ako, nag-aral po ako, dahil ayoko po na maging kabahagi ng mga pamilya na iiyak. Yung mga pamilyang iiyak nang dahil nawalan sila ng mga mahal nila sa buhay na piloto at sundalo. So, kagaya nga na sinabi ni Mr. Rice, gusto niya maging kabahagi ako sa pag-deliver ng 21 helicopters. I feel responsible na dapat kung magiging kabahagi ako ng delivery ng 21 helicopters, ay kailangan mabuo ko yung mga impormasyon na meron akong pagdududa. Kung ako ay mali, tatanggapin ko, itutuloy ko ang delivery. Kung ako ay tama, hindi ko itutuloy. At kagaya nga ng ginawa ko, lumutang ako dito at sinabi ko sa sambayanan kung ano natuklasan ko. There are two types of night flying mode. Kasi ang ating Philippine Air Force, nung mga nauna ako lumabas, pinakikita nila sa tao na lumilipad ang helicopter. Definitely lilipad yan. Definitely lilipad yan kasi helicopter yan. Pero hindi naman paglipad lang ang ating pinag-uusapan. When we speak about combat mission at saka itong mga requirement na hindi niya na-comply, saan ba ito ginagamit? Combat mission, usually at night. Dalawa po ang klase ng flying mode during night. Meron tinatawag tayong aided and unaided. Yung pong unaided, lumilipad ka lang, wala kang gamit na iba, kundi yung helicopter lang. Doon po sa aided, lumilipad ka sa gabi, meron kang night vision goggles na ginagamit and the like. Okay. Para po sa patuloy kong pag-present ng aking affidavit, mas mabuti po siguro, minarapat ko po na ipakita sa inyo kung ano po ba yung mga binabanggit ko dito for better understanding. Kasi kagaya nga ng sabi ni Mr. Rice, ako daw ay hindi helicopter expert, siguro kayo ganun din. So, I sympathize with you and alam ko kung ano yung handicap. So, para po we are on the same line and we are on the same page. Ito po yung kapag sinabi nating NVG, ito po yung night vision goggles. Example lang po yan. Marami pong klaseng ganyan. Pero base po sa aking pagtatanong during the time na nagkakandak ng inspection, ito po ang klase ng night vision goggles na ginagamit ng Philippine Air Force. Hindi man po eksaktong yan, pero ganyan po ang type ng NVG yung ginagamit nila. So when I speak about NVG, kahit papano, picture out nyo what I am talking about. Next slide, please. NVG provides a vast improvement over a human night vision. However, it is far from perfect. They do not turn night into day. So kahit papano, kahit po aided sila na night vision goggles, yung kanila pong vision ay hindi kasing perfecto kagaya ng araw, yung daytime na paglipad nila. So, kailangan po ang mga gamit aside from NVG ay compatible. At isa na po dyan yung ilaw ng helicopter. Next slide, please. Night flying is risky. We cannot do away with that fact. At kailangan talaga nating i-anticipate niyan that night flying is really risky. In the absence of safety features, helicopters collided during night operations, resulting into a fatality. Isa po ito sa dahilan kung bakit hindi kaya ng konsensya ko na ipagpatuloy ang delivery ng 21 helicopters. Kasi kapag pinagpatuloy po nating i-deliver yan at pinagpatuloy po nating papaniwalain ang ating mga piloto at sundalo that they are compliant, pwede pong mangyari yan. Hindi ko po sinasabi na kapag ginamit mangyayari, pero pwede pong mangyari yan. This is the risk on top of the enemy attack. Pupunta ka sa combat, meron kang combat mission. Hindi ka pa man tinatamaan ng kalaban mo, nagkabanggaan na kayo, nagkaroon na ng fatal effect, wala pa man ang atake ng kalaban. So, sa akin pong konsensya, hindi ko po kayang dalahin ito. Next. During combat, helicopter lighting should not be visible to the naked eye of the enemies. Hence, the NVG mode is necessary. Ito nga po ang explanation sa akin eh. Kaya nga po meron sa terms of preference na kailangan may dual mode, NVG mode, and standard mode. Dimming the light is totally unsafe because the helicopter is still visible to the enemies. Nasaan ba enemy mo? Ikaw ba ay nakikipaglaro lang ng computer game na nandun kayo pareho sa ere? Hindi. May mga kalaban ka sa baba. At isa yan sa kailangan mong bantayan. Isa yan sa ina-anticipate combat nga eh. Okay. With regards to the intake screen, sa picture na yan, makikita ninyo na si General Para at si Major Kasungkad ay nag-i-inspect ng mga helicopter at the intake screen is visible to them. So, alam nila kung anong uri ng intake screen meron ang UH-1D. Pero, ipinagpatuloy pa rin nila. Ang intake screen po ng UH-1H, sa susunod na slide, ay makikita ninyong napakalaki ng kaibahan. No, pakibalik po. Napakalaki ng kaibahan doon sa UH-1D. Iyan pong may bilog na dalawang maliit na kulay puting ilaw. Iyan po yung exterior lights na NVG compatible. Iyan po ang hinahanap sa terms of preference. Kahit anong justification ang gawin ni Mr. Rice at ng DND, still, nasa kontrata po yan eh. You have to comply. Ano bang importance niyan? Kapag ang mga helicopter ay lumilipad, nighttime, naka-NVG goggles, naka-NVG, kailangan yung ilaw compatible. Pag pinatay mo ang ilaw, iyan po ang gagamitin nila. Nakikita po nila yan. Ano po ba that is formation light? Ano po bang importance nito? Iyan po yung nag-a-avoid para hindi sila magkabanggaan. Kapag wala po niyan, pwedeng hindi sila magkabanggaan, pero pwede silang magkabanggaan. Dahil hindi nila nakikita yung kabilang helicopter dahil patay ang ilaw. Kagaya kasi ng justification nila, para daw maging NVG mode, papatayin yung ilaw or ididim yung ilaw. Hindi po tama iyon. Panluloko po iyon. So, iyan po yun. Para makita ninyo, o gusto na mag-ocular tayo, kung gusto ninyo, hanapan ninyo. Sa picture na yan, makikita nyo, wala naman po talaga yung UH-1D. Naandyan si Mr. Rice, naandyan si General Para, naandyan si Major Kasungkad, kitang-kita. Sabi nga ni Mr. Rice, it doesn't take a rocket scientist para makita mo yung simpleng bagay na ganyan. Lalo pa, ang qualification ni Major Kasungkad, he is an NVG pilot. And he is also an NVG instructor. Kaya, he can figure out in one spot, he can spot the difference. In 1 second, he can spot the difference. Makikita niya kaagad na hindi compliant ang helicopter na yan. Pero bakit nila pinagpatuloy? Next slide, please. Yan po ay sample ng UH-1H. Kahit po dyan sa picture na yan, makikita nyo, meron siyang exterior lights na NVG compatible. Iyan po yung hinahanap natin na exterior light na wala ang UH-1D. Next slide, please. Ano ba yung armor seat? So, iyan po ang example ng armor seat. And again, iyan po yung eksaktong upuan na nakalagay sa UH-1D. Bakit ba siya meron noon? Kasi iyan po ay requirement, iyan po ay nasa terms of reference, iyan po, in other words, nasa kontrata. Next slide, please. Ito po yung sinasabi ko sa inyo na closer shot ng UH-1D intake screen. Kahit po nasa labas, lapitan nyo lang po, makikita nyo na po kaagad na may diferensya. Makikita nyo na po kaagad ang kaibahan. Ito pong isa, UH-1H intake screen. Ito po ay actual shot doon sa UH-1H na ginagamit na 505. Bakit po ba ako merong picture niyan? Yan po ay ipinadala sa akin ng Air Force dahil gusto nila na mag-quote ako kung magkano dahil bibili nga sila. Dahil ang sabi nila, hanggat hindi sila nakakabili niyan, hindi nila magagamit yung UH-1D sa iba pang mission. Though hindi na talaga siya magagamit sa combat, pero sa ibang mission, kasi as of now, ginagamit lang nila yan sa training at sometimes VIP transport. So, meron po ako niyan. Picture na yan directly came from the Philippine Air Force. So, next slide please. As early as November 4. Take note, yung pong 4 na helicopter na turn over sa Philippine Air Force, if I am not mistaken, by mid-October. As early as November 4. Sila safe kung ipagpapatuloy nilang gamitin yan nang hindi sila bumibili ng ganyang klaseng intake screen. Kaya yung sinasabi ni Mr. Rice kanina about the intake screen of UH-1D, yun po ay isang kasinungalingan. Dahil masasabi po naman natin na eksperto ang ating Philippine Air Force
Kagaya din na nasabi ko noong nakaraang Senate hearing, alam nila exactly kung ano yung kailangan nila. Alam nila yon. Kaya lang, hindi nila alam kung ano yung nakuha nila na UH1D. But then, they figure out what is the difference in a short span of time. Remember, mid-October, ayan no, November 4, humihingi na sila ng quotation sa akin at nagpadala pa ng sample picture para bibili sila. Bibili sila niyan bago nila magamit sa ibang mission. Except combat, dahil talagang hindi sa combat mission. Next slide, please. The intake screen is important because the pilot has the tendency to land on undetermined surfaces. Siyempre naman, pupunta ka sa combat mission. Kabisado mo ba naman kung kailan ka tatamaan? Kabisado mo ba naman kung kailan ka kailangan mag-land? Kabisado mo ba naman kung saan ka may pipick upin sundalo? So, kailangan po natin na safety feature ng intake screen. They cannot determine whether dusty or sandy surface, but they need to do the landing. Kapag kailangan nilang mag-land, they have to. So, yung intake screen, ganyan po yung kaimportante. Sand or dust, kasama na din po yan yung mga dahon na makikita. Siyempre, combat naman natin usually sa gubat yan. So, yung intake screen, ganyan po yung kaimportante. Sand or dust, kasama na din po yan yung mga dahon na makikita. Siyempre, combat naman natin usually age to the end, yung mga dahon. What will happen? Gagamitin ko yung salita ni Mr. Rice. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out. Kapag nagka-problema ka sa engine habang lumilipad ka, alam mo na ang kasunod niyan. Next slide. Okay. Private Conference, Section 22 RA 9184, Section 22. Private Conference, actually, suppose tuloy ko na dito dahil minention na rin yan, nakalag ng kontrata. Sinawa niya that our law provides that it has dito pa lang, sabi ng batas, na gagawin mo yan during the private conference. Ang batas ay batas. Hindi po pwedeng paglaruan. At kapag may gumawa niyan, dapat parusahan. Okay. Ito yung mga bagay kung bakit natin i-amend yung kontrata. Yung mga amendment na ni-request ni Mr. Rice na kasama sa presentation niya kanina, pasok ba dyan? Wala akong nakita na dahilan para i-amend. Walang dahilan na nakalagay sa RA 9184 para i-amenda ang kontrata. Therefore, kitang-kita na may violation of RA 9184. Kitang-kita na pinaburan si Mr. Rice. Kitang-kita rin sa mga amendments of contracts na inaprubahan yan ni Secretary Voltaire Gasmin. Naman ang termination, si Secretary Voltaire Gasmin. Paki-present yung si Secretary Gasmin. Paki-present yung position paper ni Mr. Rice. A mere position not a iyan po yung position paper. Ayan o, subject pa lang, nakalagay na position paper. Pakitaas po ng isa. May nakita po ba kayong verification? Nandito po si Yusek Batino, who is a lawyer. Nandito si Patrick Velez, who is also a lawyer. Marami po tayong mga lawyers dito na makakapagsabi kung may verification yung papel na yan. Tawagin na verified dyan kung kailan magiging verified at kung kailan hindi. Yung pong isa pa, pakitaas po. Ano po ba dapat ang magsasign ng verified position paper? Position paper. Sino po ba dapat ng verified paper? Ito na rin pong masabi na may violation. Hindi pa po ako inuna ko lang po yan para
there will be another Senate Blue Ribbon hearing. So therefore, we have to wrap up. Anyway, we will have several hearings until we come to a acceptable termination of these hearings. Mr. Rice, you want to ask a question?
May I ask a question why Ms. Alvarez has a document in her possession that was done by my attorney well after the fact? Where would she get that document from?
Well,
That's a question for her. She should
yeah,
not have that
she may,
document
she
well
may
after
or
she's
she
shot
may not
President.
answer that. That's up to her.
Yeah.
But the point is, she has it.
I think she should be made to.
And it does exist.
We have a copy of that document right here if you'd like to take a look, and it is verified.
Okay, then please submit it to the committee. We will continue. Yusek Batino, I understand not all have submitted their affidavits from the DND and the AFP
Your
and the
Honor,
Air Force.
we,
All those concerned.
We relayed the instruction of the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee for all those who were named to have the option of filing with the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee. I was informed that several had already filed, Your Honor, today.
I see.
Some were yesterday, Your Honor.
Okay then. Yes, you may wish to. It's your right. If you don't want to submit, it's within your rights, no. A few administrative matters before we put it to close. Again, let me reiterate. Number one, Ms. Alvarez, yung po mga annexes po ninyo, can you give us the soft copy kasi hindi namin mabasa?
Yes, Your Honor.
And then, whatever you wish to submit, additional documents, text messages, email. Same as Mr. Rice, whatever you wish to submit, documents, text messages, email. Please do so. Asek Velez, you had an undertaking that, this was in the transcripts of the May 20 hearing, that you would submit the names and the background details of the experts who provided you with the models, helicopter models to buy.
It's the helicopter models, Your Honor, but I think the question was the experts supposedly who were part of the
Yeah,
crafting
this was in
specs.
the context of discussing you started with the 45-day period to deliver, then you. Do you remember that conversation?
Yes, Your Honor. We don't have experts who took the models, Your Honor.
Never mind. Let's stick to the your undertaking. Do you have them?
Today, Your Honor, we submitted the names of the members of the technical working group who we treated as the experts for purposes of crafting the specifications, Your Honor.
Ganito na lang, no? Okay, I'll take a look at what you submitted. But can you look at your it's on page 66 of the transcripts, May 20th. You had an undertaking. I think it was Senator Escudero who requested it.
Correct, Your Honor, but I do not recall that it referred to experts to look at the specific models. The question, I think, Your Honor, was with the experts who, if I recall it correctly, who did the assessments. And we pointed to the technical working group members, Your Honor.
Yes. Did you submit also their technical background?
No, Your Honor, not yet.
Please do so.
Yes, Your Honor.
Kailan po?
Tomorrow, Your Honor, if it's
Thank
all
you.
right.
Thank you.
Sir Chair.
Senator Ejercito.
Likewise, I requested submission of the engine and airframe logbooks during the first hearing, and Colonel Dino confirmed that these are available, no? All the 21 choppers. So again, may I follow up, Mr. Chair, the submission of these documents? Colonel Dino.
Colonel Dino.
Yung
Please respond.
airframe and engine logbook of the 21 choppers.
Sir, just like Colonel Dino, sir, I'd just like to make the clarification. Sir, all the 21 or the 7 that have been...
Or the 7 that were accepted.
Yes, sir. I'll just ask, sir, from the Air Force, sir, the copies, because that's where all been transmitted back already, sir.
No, who has possession of the documents? Colonel Dino, who has possession?
Sir, right now, sir, we have already, after we accepted it, sir, we transferred it already, sir, with the Department of National through DAO, and it's subsequently transferred, sir, to the end user, which is the Air Force already, sir.
Who's the representative of the Air
Of the,
Force here? General Ferrer? General Delgado? Do you represent the Air Force here?
Yeah. I'll check on that, sir. According to we haven't received the documents from the DND.
Yusek Patino? It's not with them, though.
Your Honor, we'll check with the Defense Acquisition Office. We will
Mr.
check
Chair,
our
the-
records, Your Honor. But it appears, at least based on the recollection of the Defense Acquisition Office, that the records have already been transmitted to the Air Force. But we admit, Your Honor, that we are not that ready with the information. But we'll get back to you tomorrow if that is all right with the Honorable Committee.
Yes, that would be all right. So I'll just hold you accountable for that piece of information, Yusek. Am I clear on that?
Honor. Yes,
Thank you. Okay, the hour is late and there is another hearing. Right now, what have we achieved? We have heard the presentation of Mr. Rice, allegedly rebutting some issues brought up by Miss Alvarez, and then Ms. Alvarez has also presented some issues rebutting also the position of Mr. Rice. In the next hearing, I would like to, aside from continuing the presentation of Ms. Alvarez, I would also like to hear from the Air Force, from the DND. You have been sitting here for the past several hearings, and I'm sure you'd like to say give your side on this matter. And so in the next hearing, please prepare. Again, I'd like to reiterate, it would be better if you submit an affidavit, but if you do not wish to do so, then that's perfectly within your right. I would also like to call the attention of the DND officials with the alarming statistics that we have found with regards to yung mga kontrata. Again, ulitin ko po, in 2013, of the 35,000 contracts, 650 lang ang dumaan sa bidding. Presumably, the rest, nagkaroon ng failed bidding, at naging negotiated procurement. In 2014 naman, 32,000 contracts, 420 lang ang may public bidding. The rest again, nagkaroon ng negotiated. Baliktad ang nangyayari, di ba dapat ang general rule, public bidding, exceptional yan lang yung negotiated procurement. Pero dito, gentlemen, you have only 2% of your contracts that undergo public bidding successfully. The rest have failed public biddings and therefore are under negotiation. And this is not a small amount of contracts. Imagine, 35,000 for 2013, 32,000 for 2014. It certainly raises some questions which I hope you can answer in the coming days. Oh, yes, Yusek Manalo, yes.
Your Honor, just to give some information about the report on the statistics on the procurement issue that you just mentioned, I'd like to confirm that we submitted that report. It came from the DND, consolidated by the DND, but all the information were submitted by the different units of the armed forces, the different bureaus of the Department of National Defense. We will submit the actual breakdown of the contracts by mode of procurement, public bidding, and negotiated. But just to inform this committee, the bulk of this procurement were undertaken by the battalions. The battalions are authorized to undertake small value procurement. Kaya po ganitong kadami, wala po lang akong idea kung ilang battalions ang meron tayo dito sa ating sandatahang lakas. But napakadami po nating battalions. Bawat isang batalyon may procurement officer, halos lahat ng kanilang procurement ay small value procurement. Kami po ay nagbigay sa inyo ng informasyon dahil yan po yung totoo. Pero yan po ay justified lahat kung bakit ganyang kalaki. And magsasubmit po kami sa inyo ng breakdown nitong mga procurement. Katulad po ng nabanggit ninyo, ilang hearing na ang natatapos natin, nandito kami. Anumang oras na gusto ninyo kaming ipatawag, kami po ay pupunta dito at makikikooperate sa anumang investigasyon na inyong gagawin. Hindi po kami magsasubmit ng fabricated reports. Yung pong totoong records ang aming isasubmit sa inyo. Yun lang po. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. That certainly sheds light on the matter. I-disaggregate natin kung gano'n, ano? Kung sa Tagalog, himayin natin para naman sa gano'n maintindihan natin kasi raw data lang yung pumunta sa amin. Okay. Thank you for that. So, ang importante dito sa issue na ito, again, I'd like to emphasize, regardless of motives of people, what is important? Number one, una, linabag ba ang batas sa pagbili ng helicopters? Number two, dinuktor ba ang specifications para paboran ang isang supplier? And number three, nakatanggap ba ng kickback yung mga in charge sa bidding? Yun po ang importante dito. At ano bang gagawin natin mga batas para hindi na mangyari ito? Para last time na ito. With that, I'd like to thank everyone for coming. We will announce by tomorrow when the next hearing will be. I would like to thank everybody for coming. It has been a most productive hearing, and we hope to get to the bottom of this as soon as we can. Thank you very much. Good afternoon.